we want to do something pretty cool here. List top 5 games of the last generation. Now, I was wondering what exactly that meant because there's some games that overlapped with like PS3, PS4. I get you could include that. Like if something cross gens, go ahead and add it. Don't be afraid to do that. One other thing I was worried about is the same thing with this current gen happening right now because there's still PS4 games coming out and PS5 and stuff like that. With Switch is kind of weird because it falls somewhere. Same thing with Wii U, but I'm including Switch and Wii U as a part of this.
All right.
So anyway,
so basically anything that is on the Wii U, Switch, PS4, Xbox One, or PC, I guess at that time would work. Okay.
Yeah.
These all fall there, so we're good.
I guess Jake, our guest here, you start first with number 5.
Oh, can't wait to hear.
Oh wow! All right.
We're doing this in order.
Yes.
And we're taking turns with each one, so we're doing 5, 5, 5, 4, 4, 4 kind of deal here. And none of us know what we put down. So anyway, Jake, go with your number 5.
All right, number 5 for me is, I'm sure both of you have probably played this, but it's The Amazing Spider-Man on PlayStation 4.
Yeah.
Huge Marvel guy, love Marvel, basically become obsessed with it since the MCU took off. Never really got a good Marvel game, though, like an open world. If you guys can remember back, Spider-Man 2 on like PlayStation 2 and GameCube and Xbox, that was one of the first games that introduced swinging throughout New York City. It was epic as a kid.
There was a PS3 game, Spider-Man, that was actually really good. And I think it was it Spider-Man 3?
It might have been The Amazing Spider-Man. I think they did put that game out on like PS3 because I would have been around the time that movie
I know
came
which
out.
one you're talking about.
It was really good, and I just remember liking it a bunch. But there was a PS3 Spider-Man game.
There's Amazing Spider-Man, Spider-Man 2, Spider-Man 3, or an Edge of Time. It's got to, I want to say it was 3, 2007?
I want to say Spider-Man 3.
It has to be. Spider-Man 2 on the GameCube and stuff, I remember swinging around the city, and it was you just became engulfed in the world, like as a kid, a free roam game like that. And Spider-Man, this is right around the times the movies were coming out. So like everyone was up to date with Spider-Man, watching Tobey Maguire be awesome. And
I think Spider-Man is the most popular superhero there is. I think that's
him and
official,
Batman
right?
are number 1 and 2 right up there. I think they go back and forth. It's crazy because you would think like Superman or someone would be up there, but no, it's Batman and Spider-Man, both of them more lower level heroes compared to like having super god powers like everybody else.
Well, they took off with the movies in such a big way. I'm sure that helped, Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire, and then Batman, the trilogy there. I mean,
the Dark Knight trilogy.
Oh,
I love Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies. I don't care what people say.
Me too. I love those.
They're just two OGs. Spider-Man on PS4, it kind of reminded me of like a lighter, better storied version of the Arkham games, the Batman games.
Yeah.
Just playing through them, like the Batman games were fantastic. I mean, I love the newest one, I think it is, where you have like the car and you drive around the city and it's very open world feeling.
Arkham Knight. Yep.
Yeah, Arkham Knight. And this is exactly how I felt playing Spider-Man, but I just felt like there was more of like a free roam feel to it. I want to say it's one of the best games, like just for doing like side missions. You just feel like a badass.
It's so true.
Like kicking ass, fighting these random little like guys on the street, and everything that you do kind of feels rewarding. Not to mention like the skill tree. It's such an in-depth game for people who don't really play those types of games. Like you go into it expecting like, oh, this is going to be like a beat 'em up with Spider-Man, but it's so much more than that. I mean, it really has like a strong RPG feel to it with how you're just leveling up your Spider-Man and seeing all these new moves. By the end of the game, I mean, you're basically untouchable. You start off getting beat by common street thugs. You get to the end of the game and you're unstoppable. But yeah, Spider-Man on the PS4 and the PS5 update where they added the 60 FPS with the ray tracing, I mean, changed the game because I had played it halfway through. I didn't have that setting. And then they put the update out after because I got it on PS5, not PS4. So I got to play it with that for the first time, and it was breathtaking. So yeah, that's why Spider-Man lands on my number 5.
Okay, so you played it on PS5 first time playing through it.
Yep, and I played through half of the game, and it was the regular setting, like the 60 FPS. I think they had it for PS5 at that time, but no ray tracing. And then they added that update in halfway through, and it kind of from then on, it was epic.
Oh, that's awesome. I wish I could have played it first time on PS5.
Right?
When I played it on PS4, that game is one of the first games in a long time where I wanted to do everything, not because every one of the little things were so much fun to do. It's just getting around to it. I never fast traveled. It was just so fun, just swinging through the sky and navigating to everywhere is just a blast. So I totally
I
agree
think
with
the
you on
best
that one.
way of saying it is like, sure, I felt tedious getting the extra stuff, but I
Right.
wanted to get the extra stuff because I love the gameplay so much.
It's so good.
Yeah, the items, they could have done it better. Like, what are you trying to find? Backpacks, right? I'm trying to remember what it was.
Backpacks,
Yeah, backpacks.
challenges, and
You're like, oh, they're just in the dumbest, weirdest places, and they weren't. It was annoying me a little, but it was just so fun to play, and I just wanted to do as much as I could that I did it anyway. So that's
right.
that's a good thing to say technically, that even though you're doing something you don't technically like, the base game is so good you're doing it anyway. So I think
It got to the point where I wouldn't even be like trying to do the missions. I would just be swinging around. If something happened to be there, I was like, oh, nice.
Yeah.
Let me grab this while I'm here. I'm just having so much fun swinging around doing like the little missions that pop up.
The only thing I didn't like about that game, and it was really just one small thing, was those little sort of stealth missions with Mary Jane. It just kind of like
those
took
were
me out of
dumb.
it completely. I wasn't really feeling that.
I didn't understand why it threw that in the game.
Yeah,
It didn't feel necessary in the slightest. It's like, am I playing an Avengers game? Why am I taking over some other character? If it's not Miles?
It's a cool story moment, but just have it be a little cutscene.
Yeah.
Right. It wasn't fun to sneak around with her. Like, I don't mind a little stealth here and there, but I don't know. It was like that thing, like you're banging your head against the wall like 20 years ago where you mess up and then you start again 5 minutes before, whatever it is. It's just annoying.
Yeah, I remember like when you turn off your PS5 and you turn it back on, if you haven't done anything else, it's like at that spot. And it happened about 2 or 3 times doing her mission where I would turn off my PS5.
You're like, damn it.
And like 2 days later, I'm like, let me play some Spider-Man, getting home from work, completely forgot where I'm at, turn it on, that's the spot. And I'm like, God, I really want to play this now.
That's too funny. That was a solid game, though. Good pick.
Okay. I'll go next. My number 5. It feels so low, but
just go with it. Just go with it.
Games of the generation.
Just fill it out.
Breath of the Wild. I wanted to put it higher, but it's my number 5.
There were a lot of good ones. I don't blame you for putting it there. But anyway, let's hear what you have to say about it.
It's almost like the longer something out, if it got really, really popular, people love to crap on it after the fact because they just hate that it's popular, I guess. I think that's what's happening because the internet does that to everything that's popular.
It sure does.
But I really think it did what no other game before it did. So when we're playing Zelda for the first time on NES, and it's this huge, we're imagining it, and we're kids, we got a big imagination, but it's that whole premise of you just going anywhere and there's secrets just around every little corner, and it feels so massive, and you can do anything and everything you can see, you can go to, and all of that stuff. It really felt like that. Yep. And the way the style looked with I guess the color palette, it's kind of the same with the old NES game. If you were to just make it obviously way, way prettier, but it has that same, actually, if you look at the artwork on the manuals and stuff, that's how Breath of the Wild looks. It looks like they pulled from that. That aside, what made it so amazing is just the one small thing of you can climb anything,
So handy. so handy.
You see a mountain way, 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 way back in the background.
So cool.
You see this mountain. You go all the way to it, and you can climb up the mountain all the way to the very tip top. When have you ever done that in any video game? You haven't.
Never. People swear you could, but no, you never could do it to that level up until that point. I'm sorry. I don't believe anyone saying otherwise. Show me the proof, please. Because I did not see it ever up to that point.
And there's stuff at the top of the mountain. I remember so many times getting to the very tip top. I don't even know why. I just wanted to do it. And there was a sword there. I'm like, thank God they actually put something there.
One of the snow peaks is like the highest in the game. And it's one of the only places the dragon comes out. So when you get to the top, you can hit the dragon to get one of his scales.
Oh, man.
Speaking of the dragons, the first time I saw a dragon, I did not know there was dragons in the game.
Same here. I remember us having that conversation.
Oh my God, there's a dragon.
I feel like no one knew what to do at all when you first saw the dragon. Like, what the hell?
I 100% shot it with arrows after. Like, I seen it. Realized it was like I'm a peasant and stand no chance, and just gave up after that. And then I saw a couple more. At that point, I had to Google it. Let's be honest. I had zero zero idea what they were in the game for or what they did. They just looked awesome.
They're so big, but so high up. Even if you try to shoot them, you think like you can hit them, but it's way harder to hit than you.
Yeah, your arrows don't even go like halfway. You have to get the abilities to like jump up in the air or be like floating in the air off a mountaintop, like with your glider doing the slow motion arrows.
Dude, one thing that game did that I always like, I understand the complaints that people have about Breath of the Wild. I get it. They didn't bother me nearly as much, but okay, fine. But the one thing I will never back down on with Breath of the Wild is every time you were in a part of the world at any given time, you just walk up while I'm playing. Where are you right now? It felt so distinct. Like if I'm in Zora's domain or in the Goron the mountain or the desert, they're like so different from each other. You know, you would never.
They felt like completely different game environments.
Yeah, like so Horizon came out around that time, which I really enjoyed, but when I played
it all
Horizon,
the same.
Exactly. That's exactly my point. I've argued this with people so much. Horizon, I couldn't tell you the name of any place in Horizon or something special about that area, but I can tell you for sure when you're in the desert, for example, I could tell you a number of things that only happen right there. You know, I love that about that game. It was just so unique, man.
And Hero Girl in the desert is really cool. The fact that they have different heroes in different areas too. It's almost like they're the character of the area. That's such a cool idea.
One thing that I really enjoyed as well was the return of how the fairies are with their fountains and stuff. I thought that was such an awesome.
That blew my mind.
Agreed. The first time she came out, I'm like, what in
first
the
time
F?
seeing the fairy like that? I'm like,
it's like this like 25-foot-pound lady, bigger lady with like a bikini on. I'm like, what the heck? And she's like, da, 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 da.
Not to get graphic, but you feel like you could just walk inside of her.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dude, seeing that for the first time after growing up with Zelda, and they gradually, it get a little more realistic, or not realistic, more detail, and then you see that, you're like, just seeing it almost reminds me of like when we played Final Fantasy VII Remake, and you see some moments from back in the day. Now that's how I felt with Breath of the Wild. I'm like, oh my god, this is the first time seeing it like this. It's just amazing, man.
Because the last time we saw the fairies in 3D, they were like, what, triangle titties or whatever.
Right. Like Tomb Raider days.
Right.
But back to what you were saying about like how each area felt different.
Sure.
That's like an overlooked feature because like now I'm just sitting here looking back on what you're saying, and I'm remembering the first time I had to climb one of the snowy mountains, and it's like a blizzard, and it just feels epic.
You have to prep yourself for it. You have to eat hot chilies.
Yeah, and you have to equip, like if you have a weapon that's like fire weapon, you need to put it on your back so it keeps you warm while you're going through the cold. To some people, I can see how that would seem petty, but it's such a like in-depth feature that they must have gone through to add that. Right. You know that somebody was there talking, okay, this would be a pretty cool feature to add. And it got thrown in the game at some point where you're having to keep on warm clothes and warm weapons to make sure you're at a good temperature. It's such an awesome feature that's so small.
Yeah, it wasn't tedious either. Like, it didn't bother me. That's why when people say stuff like the weapon breaking, oh my god, so annoying. I'm thinking back on my time with Breath of the Wild, and weapon breaking became something that I didn't even think about after a while. Number one, I wasn't stopping to fight every single enemy. There was no need to. And number two, I had a whole house full of these powerful weapons that would last so long. It's like, I don't know. I don't know.
Jake's house, I remember him showing me. He had the coolest house of all of his.
It had the three strongest weapons in it, and then I had the three best bows in it. I didn't even carry around the best weapons in the game. I would just put them on my wall because, like, I can handle the game. I don't want to mess with that.
That was the same with me. Yeah, and the powers that you would get, I would take out these Lionels with like my stasis and a few other things. I didn't even use them. Oh my god, they're so much fun to fight them.
I'll never forget the first time I seen one. Funny story. I know it was Tim as well. We had both seen them, and we were in the first 2 hours of the game.
We had 3 hearts.
Yes, 3 hearts, and I played them. I died every single time, and when I say that, over 150 times, no doubt. I could not kill this thing, and I gave up. I'm like, he doesn't have to do with the story. I looked it up, Googled it, found the answer. Call up Tim. I'm telling him about it. Tim's like, yeah, dude, I've already fought him like 1,000 times, but I beat him. And I'm like, what?
You're like, blows your mind.
Dude, I'm like,
and this is a whole new console we've never messed with before. We had a capture feature, thank God. And I was able to save me beating him just so I could prove it because no one's going to believe me.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, dude, it's like, this is like some like YouTube video levels, guys streaming him playing it. It's like one of the popular videos of a guy like speed running one of the bosses. The fact that you're able to do that is just, It was insane because I played it a ton and I was like, all right, I give up. I can't do this. And then I talked to Tim and he's like, I did it after like 1,000 tries. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so jealous.
Dude, that's what's so great about this game is, and clearly we can tell we're all pretty, high on this game, which I love hearing because I'm so used to people crapping on this game so much. But anyway, I couldn't believe how awesome it was talking to people as we're all playing through this game and you're telling me something that's happening in your game. I've never even heard of that. I'm telling you something I discovered. You've never heard of it. It was just loved, like everyone playing the game together. It felt
it's
pretty
still
special.
the number one sold game on Switch, even after Animal Crossing. Animal Crossing is number 2. The fact that Breath of the Wild was that big of an impact. Switch is the most popular system of all time, as no system has ever sold faster. And Breath of the Wild's number 1.
Crazy,
it's
man.
funny because I have a coworker who just got a Switch, I believe it was about 2 weeks ago, and he got Breath of the Wild. He was telling me about him playing it and how it was like one of the best games he's ever played. And I asked him where he's at. He hadn't even gotten the glider yet. And he's saying this. And I'm sitting there thinking like, this guy has probably seen nothing. He has no idea what he's in store for because I remember playing it the first time and I started off on that top. I'm like, wow, this game's huge. Look at all the background. I hope I can go there. And then you get the glider.
We thought the game was just that area before we got the glider.
Right.
You can see things in the background, but we're thinking like, oh, maybe it's just background or something. And we're like, this area is huge. Wow, this game's really big. That little plateau in the very beginning we thought was big.
Right.
Like, we were so
it seemed huge.
dumb if we only knew.
That game, I could talk about that game all day, man. What an amazing game. I can't wait. I'm just thinking ahead when 2 comes out. I can't wait to have that moment again. We're all talking. We're all discovering things about it. It's just, I can't wait.
It's a bigger map than Skyrim, right?
You know what? I don't know for sure, but what I will say
it has
is,
to be because I know the second one, they added the sky where it's basically like a sky version to Breath of the Wild. So it's going to have like an entire top area.
Man. It's going to be amazing.
It's going to be insane. I'm so looking forward to that game. I haven't been excited about a Switch game like that since Breath of the Wild. I just remember playing it for the first time and it was like right when the system came out. Perfect game.
I'm pulling up a map right here of somebody comparing all of the games. Hold on.
While you're looking that up, I'll mention also the other thing is I love seeing videos now, even years later. People try these things. They're like, okay, this power works this way. This weapon works this way. Your jump works this way. And they put it all together and they do this crazy stuff that you could never imagine would even work. And it always works. Like they thought of everything with this game. It's craziness, man.
Okay, Breath of the Wild, 23 miles squared. Skyrim is 15 miles squared.
Wow.
So yes, Breath of the Wild's like almost twice as big as Skyrim.
That's craziness, man.
It is close to the size of Grand Theft Auto 5.
And it's going to be bigger in Breath of the Wild too. Let that sink in.
I can't wait, man. I'm so excited.
Okay, Grand Theft Auto 5, you fly planes across the whole map, and it takes a while. And Breath of the Wild almost has a biggest map as GTA 5.
Yeah, I was going to say the GTA 5 map is like the biggest I've ever seen. I just started crazy game I haven't played for the first time until about 2 months ago, GTA 5. And that map is insane.
Yeah, it sure is.
But you have vehicles and all of that. I mean, Zelda, you don't have a plane you can take from the north coast to the south.
It literally takes 25 minutes to run from one point of the island to the other side in Breath of the Wild. If you want to do that, you're going to be there a minute. I was so happy to
But that's what's cool. Like it's really huge. We all know it's really big, but there is stuff around every corner. Even those stupid little Korok seeds where they got 999 or is it 1,000 or is it like 300? Either
I think it's a lot. It's a very decent amount.
People complain about that left and right, even me, like, oh, there's no way I could get all of these. But it's cool they added it because at least there's just that one more thing that fills out of just something you could find.
Right.
It still like feels really good. Like, oh, cool, I got a little Korok seed, figured out a little puzzle in this random area. I was just walking through the woods. And saw something a little off. I'm like, wait, that looks weird.
Dude, the crazy thing is I swear to God, Zelda set me up to be questioning every room I'm in and like any type of game.
Yep.
Zelda is the first game I think of when I'm like, all right, let me move this random table that could mean nothing, but there's a slight chance something will happen. And it's helped me in so many games.
Yeah,
So
that's what I
many
love about it.
games I found just different things from that. And back to your point, Rudy, you were saying like how you hear people like crap on Breath of the Wild.
Oh, yeah,
I'll
all the
say,
time.
bro, I was one of those people who always compared it to the other Zelda games, like, it doesn't have dungeons and this and that. But then I really think about how much fun I had on it, how many hours I put into it. And it's amazing. Like you have to look at it as if it's not like traditional Zelda game. It's like it's like a whole new era of Zelda games, and this is the beginning of it. Like,
exactly.
Obviously, the Nintendo Zelda, it might be some's favorites, but it's like it's not everybody's favorite Zelda game. But that was the first game, and you remember it as being awesome. So I expect future games to be even greater than this one. Obviously, the next one's going to be even better, I'm guessing. I mean, I don't see how it can't be.
I can't wait, man. I think you're right. I think there's a lot of people who they'll go through the cycle that everyone goes through with Zelda games. They either play it, they love it, and then later they crap on it like Skyward Sword, or they play it, they hate it, and then it grows on them when they kind of explore more. And the crazy thing is this game was so different than the previous Zeldas, but it also was so alike to the beginning of Zelda because, like Tim was saying before, it took a lot of notes from the original Zelda. It really
did. So even when we're talking about, okay, a snowy mountain and we need the fire to burn something or a fire arrow to melt something, that's all the way back for Ocarina of Time, N64. Like there's an area where you have to bring hot water and it has to stay hot and you have to hurry up and run down the mountain, melt some ice to free this dude. There's still elements of that in Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, there were certain places in the game, like the ranch that you find, and it's like in ruins, just brings you back. There's a lot of different things throughout that game that just definitely threw in teasers from past games.
Yep.
The ranch is in there.
Yeah, the ranch is in ruins, and it's like you can just look it up and
that's so cool, man.
Doesn't it play the music of the ranch really calmly and like slow? But it's the music.
Say yes, but I'm not sure. It sounds like it definitely sounds like something.
No, I think
I had Breath of the Wild in my list. I'm not gonna lie, but I pulled it out, and I'm so happy you included it because I wanted to talk about it so bad.
What's your number 5?
All right, so even to this moment, I'm still considering, but it's okay. All right.
Oh, hold on. I got one side thing with your name. Every time I say Rudy, you know what I'm thinking about? I'm thinking about the Sega Genesis Road Rash. There's this Rudy that's always like first or second.
Dude, I remember that. That's so funny that you bring that up.
That game
my
God. Much.
And Rudy was
Rudy was awesome at
CPU.
What an amazing game.
Dude,
that's number one on the list. I forgot to tell you. Spoiler alert.
I completely forgot about that. Holy crap. That's so funny that you bring that up. I used to love Road Rash, man. What a game. Anyway, all right. So number 5 was very, very difficult for me. I'm looking at these two games right now. I'm still not sure. Okay, it's fine. I'm going to go with it. All right. Number 5 for me is The Witcher 3, which is a safer pick than the other. Am I allowed to even say what the other one was, or you want me not to even say that?
Whatever, go ahead.
All right.
What did you cut out?
I gotta hear it.
So I cut out Doom Eternal, which is it's one of my all-time favorite games. But anyway, I won't talk about that.
I loved it. I love Doom Eternal.
The game
is so crazy.
It's amazing. I could talk about that all day, but anyway, let me focus on Witcher 3. Okay, so Witcher 3, man, this game is something else. I never played Witcher 1 or 2. I bought them all in like a pack. I was like, all right, let me catch up on the series. I fired up Witcher 1 on my computer for a little while. I was like, this is kind of rough. I was like, whatever. Do I need to play this? Then I went to Witcher 2. I was like, this feels pretty good. But then the more I hear people talking about Witcher 3, how amazing it is, I'm like, let me just go to 3. And I'm so glad I did because 150 hours later, I was like, this game is incredible. Like, I don't think I had played a game that mixed, like you play Skyrim or something, right? Which is a huge open world. You can do anything, but it's kind of rough looking. And a lot of the stuff is clearly, a little jagged.
The combat isn't that good.
The combat's, I hated the combat.
Where obviously Witcher actually has good combat.
Well, that's what I'm getting at is I was so shocked that not only does this game, it looks amazing, the voice acting is so well done, the story's awesome, and then I started doing the combat and it's so in depth. You gotta, before you get into a fight, you gotta apply this oil for this particular enemy, or these ones are ghost type, so you have to use this thing. I just thought that was so cool. The more I played the game, I couldn't stop getting into fights with all these enemies and trying new things out and reading the bestiary and everything. Man, that game was something incredible. And I had never even played the expansions, which everyone says are incredible, like Blood and Wine and what was the other one? Hearts of Stone, I think it was. I
Yeah.
never got to those, but I already spent over 100 hours plus in the game already. I guess I couldn't believe how nice the open world was. It was so well done, and it made Skyrim, in my opinion, look like crap. Like there wasn't all these glitches and problems. I know when The Witcher first launched, it had its issues, but remember, I played this maybe like 5 years ago.
So did you do what I did? Because I tried Witcher 3 numerous times, but I
Right.
only get like 5-10 hours in at the very most.
Sure.
Probably not even that, probably like 7, but I kept falling off. I just was like, not enough, I don't know, not enough interesting things were happening.
Tim, you're
Like,
speaking my language right now. Same. I'm trying to listen to Rudy talk about it, and I'm very intrigued, and I'm happy that somebody's given such an in-depth like review on it, because
Sure.
I'm curious to how you got past that phase. But I would say the very beginning of it, it's so
I
overwhelming.
tried 4 times and I could never get past the beginning. It was always just like, I don't know what I'm doing. This isn't fun. It looks pretty.
Well,
It leaves me wondering: do I need to know the prior games, or like
no. See,
will I grow to the character and attached? And is that like what I need to get past the beginning?
you don't need the prior games at all. I felt a little bit similar to what you guys are saying in the beginning, but I had just bought this game. I had just had it hyped up for me, so I was like, I got to see this through. So just like you guys said, first hour or two, I'm like, okay, I don't really know what's going on. I don't really know much about this character. He's kind of like a strong, silent type, doesn't talk much. So this is kind of weird, right? I just started. The first area you start in is the White Orchard, I think. It's like this.
That's my exact thoughts.
Hold on. Sorry. One thing.
Yeah.
The first hour or two in Breath of the Wild, it was amazing.
That's
You run
okay,
up to the hill, you
that's-
see the whole thing.
That's fair enough.
Beginning was so strong, and then you meet the old man, and then he ends up being the king, and there's all of this like really interesting, crazy things happening around you. The combat, like you're rolling a rock down a hill, you never knew you could even do that. And Witcher 3, I'm just like walking around being bored.
Well, hold on.
Same.
In defense of Witcher 3, first hour or two, you got to understand this game is a direct continuation. I know Zelda, you can say in quotes, it is a sequel, right? But we all know you can play any Zelda and not have played the previous
Yeah,
one.
it's its own
Yeah.
game every single
The
time.
story is not the strongest part of Zelda, unless we're talking about like Skyward Sword, maybe. Otherwise, stories are not great. So and this is so weird to be talking against Breath of the Wild because I love that game. But this game, in my opinion, it shits all over Zelda's story. It's way, way better. I think we can all agree on that. Zelda's more about the gameplay, obviously.
Yeah,
But-
I'm not really
but
concerned about the story.
No, I get that. But the first hour or two, it wasn't that I was bored. It's just that I felt a little unfamiliar. I wasn't really sure. How do I fight these enemies? How do I use these weapons? What's going on
Bored is
here?
harsh. I don't want to say bored.
Yeah, no,
I
it
just
definitely
didn't
wasn't.
know what was going on or what I was doing.
Right. I would recommend if you guys ever go to try to give it another chance, I would recommend just leaving that first area as soon as you can. Don't get stuck there doing all this stuff like I did. I was just enjoying it, so I stayed. But if you want to really get the story going and get into the combat and all the new abilities, you just progress the story. Just play it through normal. And then if you start wanting to do side stuff, then do side stuff. But I think if you do that and you still don't like it, well, then I can't help you. I think that might help alleviate some things. It's just the side stories in this game too, and the way you play through them and the mechanics in the game are better than some main stories in other games, which I thought is crazy. I know sometimes that happens quite often, but in this game, the main storyline is pretty good. It's fun, but the side stuff is where it's at, man. That's where you're going to this mountain and into a cave, and you're finding this cursed enemy that you kill to get this part to bring to the blacksmith to get this armor. It's just like cool stuff like that, you know? And on top of that, like I've mentioned, the story was just incredible.
I know it has to be good because I'm watching the Netflix adaptation, and anytime you watch an adaptation, you know the video game's amazing. Like it's a masterpiece if it's earning its own show. And I know the show's not going to be anywhere near the level of the game because let's be honest, it never is.
Of course.
But the fact that it got its own show and it's so popular now with people who don't even play the games, know anything about it, they're watching the show and they're addicted. I know the game's got to be good if it's getting its own TV show.
Of course.
They really have to go all in if they're willing to make a show going off of this video game. They're saying it's the books, but we all know what's going on here.
Yeah.
I just remember the critical reception of it, of nothing but 9s and 10s, and everyone being, oh my God, this game is like one of the best games I've ever played.
Sure.
It just never hit with me, and I guess I just got to try again.
First of all, where did you play it as well?
Pretty far. I got to where, okay, you meet that witch girl, and she takes you on this quest to go into this mountain, and there is like these green ghost dudes that you fight.
Yeah,
and
I remember what you're talking about. Okay.
cleared that area, then got to the next city to where I finally did meet up with the girl you were looking for. I forget her name, with the black hair.
Oh, Yennefer? That's got to be who you're talking about. There's Yennefer, Ciri, and Triss.
I don't know. Ciri's the daughter.
Ciri's the daughter. Yep.
I remember being on a horse and not being able to go to like a certain spot, and I was like, and it really just like it immediately turned me off. It really did. I just remember being on the horse, and I'm like, all right, let me go over here. It looks really cool. Oh wait. And then I felt like I was in Final Fantasy 13 again, where I'm on a linear path.
Oh man, I hope eventually you guys will like it, because man, that game, to me, I couldn't stop. I couldn't stop playing it. I was so interested in what was going on, and there was nothing that I liked more than, okay, there's this side quest. There's this griffin that's, in this area, and if you kill it, you can get whatever, whatever it is. And before you approach the griffin, you're reading the bestiary, and it's not boring stuff. You're reading up on it. There's all this lore, all this background, how to take down the griffin. Here's this stuff. So you're going, you're finding all your stuff, you're talking to people, and then you go fight this. Like, the battles in that game are so epic. It reminded me, there was one area, and I won't spoil anything, but there's one part reminded me of the second Lord of the Rings movie or something. An epic, huge battle going on with kings and queens and soldiers fighting and stuff. It's just awesome, man. I don't know. I loved it, but it sounds like I'm the only one. So
take part in the war.
Well,
it's all going on around you. Is it a cutscene?
There's a lot of stuff going on around you, and at certain points you get involved, and then there's even side stuff that you don't have to get involved in, but you can, and which of course I did. I'll just say that much. But there's a lot of extra things you can get involved in. That there was a storyline that I did with this guy called the Bloody Baron. It's a whole side quest line, 5, 6, 7 different mission story arc. And it's a really, really emotional storyline. And you, as we all know, you're controlling and you're doing all these actions. So it becomes more than just watching a story, which is what we love about video games, obviously. But that storyline, to imagine that someone played The Witcher and they didn't play that line and they didn't have to, it's just crazy because it's that good. So I don't know. Hopefully you guys can, revisit it another time.
What's helping me try to connect to it is I'm thinking on Mass Effect. Because I'm playing Mass Effect Legendary Edition right now, and I cleared through 1, and I'm like a few hours into 2, but I forgot how good they were with the backstories and reading on the lore and all that.
Doing that in both Mass Effect and Witcher. So Mass Effect, for example, I meet this Quarian, and they're talking this and that, and I don't know what a Quarian is. So I'm sitting in the Codex, I'm reading for freaking 20 minutes about the Quarians and everything they did, and now when I talk to them, now I kind of have some more background.
Because there's a ton of games that have lore that you can read, and that's what's going to throw people off, because they're just comparing it to the rest. The problem is with Mass Effect, and then I have to, I guess, attach it to Witcher, is when you're actually reading it, you care for some reason.
Right.
They just do it so well compared to the rest.
That's exactly it, man. And I played it. I don't know if this will change anything for some people. For me personally, I'd never played it on console. I played it on PC, and I didn't play it at launch when I know it had some issues. So I played it, ultra settings, higher frame rates and everything. And I think that helped too, because people had some problems with the combat and the way it would move and the way it felt. I don't know if that plays into it too, because I've heard people complain about the combat on a controller. They don't like it. So I don't know. Maybe I set myself up for success.
I will try it again.
If you try it again and you get a little ways in.
I would to love this game that's apparently a masterpiece, I would love to just be champion.
That's how I personally feel about it. If I bring Jesse on, which I was just talking to in the chat, he will be screaming louder than me about this game.
Tim, you got to think as well, the way you can play games now, you can play your Xbox on your phone.
That's true.
I imagine it would be very easy.
So much. That's a good
because sitting in the front of the screen, that was my hardest thing, was staying occupied sitting in that spot. But if I'm laying in my bed,
what? That's probably what saved Breath of the Wild for us. We were playing it portable in our bed till 4 a.m.
I'll never forget. You're going to bed,
awesome.
You just grab the switch off the TV, and then boom, you're laying in bed able to play another hour and a half. Because I'm going to
doing that with
time
Witcher
on,
would
my
help.
phone doing nothing.
Give it a shot, man. Give it a shot.
Good.
I promise you, I'm not steering you towards a bad game. Is it a game that you're gonna love? I don't know, but it's definitely not a bad game. That's for sure. So
I'm scared by how addicted I'll become. And then I'll be in that world for at least 3 weeks.
I've always wanted a really good Lord of the Rings game, and there was that Third Age game that was kind of good.
Yeah, the first-person RPG. Shadow of War is a very good game.
But it doesn't feel Lord of the Rings enough.
Dude, many games like Assassin's Creed, it just gets so repetitive.
And I'm
That's
just
what everyone
says.
I want to travel the Lord of the Rings world, meeting new characters and meeting hobbits, going to their whole little area, or going to the elves and actually
Dude,
walking
it's
through
what
their
makes
city,
Breath of the Wild
know?
so unique. And like we
Yeah.
spoke earlier, each area feels so different. Playing Shadow of War, I'm like, man, this is literally the exact same place I was just at with like some weird skin on it, like a different color and a different orc. Like,
Yeah.
ooh, like no, it's the same thing every section.
Yeah,
of the
imagine
game.
a Lord of the Rings game where Breath of the Wild, you have completely different areas where you get to meet the king of the entire huge city that you get to roam around in. You know?
Yeah, for sure.
Glad you brought that up because The Witcher is another game, in my opinion, that the areas feel very distinct. You're traveling. You're not. It's not like you walk and then all of a sudden you're in the next area. It's like a big thing. You're going from here to here. Now you're on an island. Now you're on a ship. It's like very, very different, distinct areas. And then because you're reading the lore, like I did, you know that these natives of this area do things a different way, and so you're keeping that in mind as you play through it. It's really well done, man. So hopefully we can talk about this 6 months from now. You guys will be like, oh my god, I love The Witcher. I'm so glad you brought that up.
I hope. I wish. Anyway, so Jake, number 4.
You guys are going to think I'm crazy for putting this on my list, but I do not care.
All right. Let's hear it.
Stardew Valley, baby.
Oh, Stardew Valley.
This
Okay.
game is one of the best farm games, life simulator games I've played in so long. I'll never forget playing the Harvest Moon games on like DS and GBA and GameCube. They just had such a unique feel to them. It was just such a great game. And then you play Stardew Valley. I mean, I've searched forever to find a game like that. But
Right.
Stardew Valley, I am telling you, you can literally get engulfed for hours and feel like 10 minutes has gone by. It is one of the best simulating games. Just there's so much to it that is so underlined. When you hear it, like I'm explaining it, you're thinking, oh, it's just like a farming simulator. No, it is so in depth. Your guy levels up, you get different skills. There's mines where you can go fight enemies that's like 100 levels deep. There's an endless one that you find, like a mine where you're fighting enemies. You can get married. Your side to the wife that you choose, or husband, they can.
I didn't know all this. Wow, this sounds
Bro,
like a different game.
I'm telling you, you can be gay in the game if you want to and marry a guy.
That's
you
crazy.
can marry a girl. Your characters do stuff. Your wife, they all do different tasks for you throughout your day, so you don't have to worry about it. Like feed your horses or fix your equipment in the yard. Like if your fences.
Do they do it on? Like, do you assign them?
No, they do it
know what to
automatically.
do?
They each do their own thing. And
okay. Like one girl will really like animals, so they'll care for the
so like
animals.
exactly. She'll feed the animals and make sure they're fed every morning, which if you play the game and have a big farm when you're in the end game, it's going to take you at least 10 real minutes to do that. And
so you actually getting in a relationship helps you with the game.
Yes, exactly. You want to find somebody, and it makes the game fun how it progresses when you give the villagers gifts and stuff like that. Have you guys played Stardew at all? Like
Played like 10 hours.
Yeah, a little bit, a few hours. I played it. I messed, with the general mechanic. Now, this was a long time ago. I guess I didn't realize that this game is way deeper than just managing your crops. Or is it? I don't know. You tell me.
You start off and you're like, I guess your grandpa dies and you find out you inherited his farm. And it starts off like any farming sim or Harvest Moon game or even Rune Factory where you're like, okay, I guess I'm taking over this farm and I'm just going to sell crops and make money. It feels like 20% of the game. I mean, the rest of the game you're spent going in the mine. You're mining for so much lore. It's insane. It's like you're playing Diablo or something. It's like Animal Crossing, very much so, because you can collect like different types of ores. You can turn them into the museum. There's hidden books. You find out the villagers are like having affairs on their significant others. There's one time where you find the mayor's underwear in this girl's refrigerator. And
Wait, what?
What?
you find the mayor's underwear in one of the characters' refrigerators. And it's like one of those Zelda type things where you're just in a room and you feel like that refrigerator is interactive and you talk to it and you find this underwear, which funny thing, you end up using that as blackmail against the mayor later on in the game because you you find his underwear in this girl's thing, and it's such an in-depth game. And
there is like deep story stuff like that.
Yeah, there's like different things that you find out about the villagers, and there's a lot to it. I mean, one of the girls, that her mom's an alcoholic, and you basically
I didn't know this game was so dark.
You had no idea. Her mom's an alcoholic.
Putting underwear in a fridge. Your mom's alcoholic.
She's super mean to her daughter, and the daughter's one of the girls you can marry, but it's like, she has parent issues. I don't feel like dealing with that. So I obviously picked like the one who's rich and is like the stereotypical like stuck up girl. I mean, we all have an idea of what she looks like in our head. Anyways, there's this like
she has blonde hair.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yep. It's bleached blonde hair. She's super stuck up, wears a pink dress. It's pretty funny. One of the characters, the mom's an alcoholic. She's super mean to the daughter. Later on in the game, when you basically beat it, you're so rich, you buy them a house. Okay. And it's better than your house, which is upsetting, but okay. Like you can't even get a house that nice. But yeah, I mean, there's so much more to it than just like the farming sim. If you haven't,
can you decorate your house?
Oh yeah, you can decorate it, you upgrade it. It's so good. I'm telling you, it is one of the best games.
Does the game ever feel like, you've been playing it for, 6 months straight? Does it get to a point where you feel it's getting repetitive or redundant? And even 6 months is way more than you would get at a lot of games, to be fair.
I put about 120 hours in that game.
Wow.
And I believe I got to year 5. I had already beaten the game. I had gotten everything in the museum. I had done pretty much everything that you would feel like you can do. Then they added co-op because I played it on Switch. Okay. I didn't play it when it first came out. I got it on Switch. Then once I had finished the game, they added co-op. You can play with up to 4 other people and run a farm with 4 other people. Everyone has their own little cottage on the land. So it's a cool co-op game. Now they're adding more story to it. They're adding so much stuff to it. And I haven't played this game in forever. What I'm doing is I'm giving it time to get all this DLC out. And then I'm going to replay the game with all this extra DLC, and it'll feel like a whole new game. Chucklefish is who makes the game, and you guys will probably be interested in this, as is myself.
I know Chucklefish. They have a lot of good stuff.
In development right now, they have a game that's very similar to Stardoo Valley, but it is like a Harry Potter game where you go to wizard school.
Oh, I heard about this.
Yeah.
That did look really cool. I know what you're talking about.
Yep.
Those little witch girls.
Starbound. Witchbrook. I see it right here.
Starbound was Cuttlefish, though. As well.
Yeah, it's going to be very exciting, and I highly recommend, if you haven't played Stardew, give it another chance. It's definitely worth playing through when you start to realize how in-depth it is. I mean, you can type in Stardew Wiki, and there's an entire wiki, not like Wikipedia. Wow. It's like its own thing.
Right.
And you will see how in-depth this game is. I'm telling you, it is so much more than meets the eye on this game.
Piqued my interest, so you play Witcher, I'll play Stardew.
Sounds like a plan.
My number 4 is, this is kind of weird, but so before I even say, I'm giving a preemptive because I was really thinking about, what game did I play the most out of last gen over anything else? What did I always go back to? All of us
always have this pre-introduction to our game. We need validation before we can play it.
Final Fantasy 14. I didn't even think about it when I'm making my top 5 until I really started to think what do I keep? I loaded up yesterday.
This is the online only one, right?
Right.
Yeah. But man, I've been playing that since. So what's weird is it technically came out 6 months before the PS4 came out. So it was like PS3. I wasn't even playing it till it was on current gen and all of that. And these expansions, so it's not like other games to where there's an expansion, so it just adds extra stuff or whatever. It feels like DLC. These are chapters to the game. The first being first being the original, then it failed majorly. A Realm Reborn came out, and that's when I jumped on board. And I played since beta of that. And then I dropped off. I played the beta for a week, and I was like, oh, it's kind of cool. And then much later, it being on systems that were out last gen, picked it up again, and I've had to have put in hundreds. You can pull up a little clock, and I did a year or two ago, and it said I played 500 hours. And at this point, I want to say I'm 600 now. You don't even have to play that much. I just was doing all the extra stuff. So when you're talking about Stardew, I could go spend 50 hours farming, or I could spend 50 hours level up my fishing or level up my mining or level up all these separate job things that I could do to sort of pass the time. But I'm really working it towards other things. So like, you know, you could be a blacksmith and go down that rabbit hole. And that way you could make gear yourself. And that way you're not having to really find the gear. Maybe you're just needing to find materials so you can make the gear, you know, instead of having to like hope that you get the special gear in the dungeon. That's where you're dumping so many hours just doing all of this, like, because it's the perfect, I'm going to listen to a podcast or watch a TV show and I'm just going to work on something basic while it's going on, you know? So many hours of me playing Final Fantasy 14, I'm not even really looking at the screen. I'm like watching a show and I'm just tapping X on me mining or something, you know what I mean? But what makes it like my number 4 and why it's so important is like not just the time that I spent in doing dumb stuff. It's the story is top tier Final Fantasy stuff. I mean, you could see it all over the internet if you just Google, like, people agree with me. This is some of the best stories ever told in Final Fantasy history. And the fact that it's also included into this game that's so massive that you can do all these extra side things, but then still get a story. And it's fully voice acted. It's not like you're just reading paragraphs. I don't know if you ever played any MMORPGs, but you know, you're talking to a character, you're just reading walls of text just so you can go and kill 3 bears and bring back their skin or something like that. It's not like that. It's actually characters that you meet along the way and really caring what's going to happen next, and you going into these crazy cities with and having dragons destroyed and all this. The story is really, really, really good. And there's a lot of like,
I'm glad to hear that. That's what I was going to ask you.
Kingdom. There's like kingdoms with betrayals, and it feels like you're playing like, let's say like Final Fantasy 6. It feels a lot like Final Fantasy 6, and it's like Empire stuff. Obviously, this is like current graphics, and there's very serious evil people in the background. And then you end up finding out that some people aren't even evil and they're really nice, vice versa. And you're all like, there's so many twists and turns in the story, and you really get attached. I got really attached to this lady character, and I don't want to spoil anything in case you ever play it. I was, you know, thinking she was good this whole time, and she ends up being one of the most evil, like, that's literally slaughtered entire races in the background, and no one even know. And it feels like some epic Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings crap of all of these things happening with different kingdoms, and there's like technically a big war happening with most of the nations, but it's so complex and no one's really in the right or wrong because there's so much that involves with each little section of why they're doing it. And you can kind of see their point in some areas, but then there's some that's called the Empire that's just actually 100% straight evil and they don't give up at all. But then there's people that basically live in these nations that are good. So think about like China, right? China's government's horrible, but then obviously there's good people that are a part of the nation. So you can't just completely wipe the whole thing out because they have these conversations in the game to where like, we don't know what to do because they couldn't be any more of a problem. But there's too many people that live on these lands and we can't just destroy the whole thing. It is so complex of a story, and they just keep like adding chapters. And now we're about to get this new chapter. Oh, they also add like famous Final Fantasy characters as like special bosses. So like, you can fight like Kefka from Final Fantasy 6.
Oh my god, that's awesome!
In like a special dungeon or whatever, and he's actually like one of the hardest ones too. Like it took me ages to beat him, but you get to fight like tie-in. You get to fight all these big summons. It's all Final Fantasy stuff through and through. You can get like Cloud's outfit and sword if you wanted to, stuff like that. So
that's awesome.
I'm playing as a character of like, if you ever played Final Fantasy 12, those bunny girls, the long ears.
Oh, what you talking about?
They actually added that race like a year or two ago.
Oh, okay.
I've been playing as that. But what's really cool, one of the best things is you can switch any job or any class. So you don't have to make a new character. Any other RPG, like if you want to be somebody different, you have to make a whole new character just to be like a dragoon person or to be like an archer or whatever. Well, in this game, you just swap your weapon. It has like a 20-second cooldown, then you're allowed to use it. So that way it's not like broken and you can't just... Well, if you go into a dungeon, you have to stay locked into that class. But outside of it, anywhere else, you switch your weapon, you switch your class.
This game sounds Sounds pretty cool. I mean, I've heard so much about it, and some of the things you mentioned do really make me think of Final Fantasy VI, which is like one of my favorites ever. So that already piqued my interest a little bit there.
They literally have that music where so you get one of the mounts with the big mechs, and it
Oh
does the
yeah.
music in the very beginning where they're all walking in the mechs on the
Oh,
snow.
that's
It's
awesome.
so cool.
I heard a friend talking about this game who plays it all the time, and he's mentioning Magitech and stuff. I'm like, Magitech, what? And he's a
Yeah,
guy
yeah.
who.
And Magitech is a huge part in Final Fantasy
Oh,
14. It's probably the most prominent like story background that keeps continuing.
Oh, that okay. I'm gonna have to definitely try
And
this.
it's not like they just named it that. It actually is that.
I had
So,
no
like,
idea that it had such an in-depth story behind it.
Yeah, that's pretty
and
awesome.
it only gets more and more epic because he keeps getting better as the new expansions come. And every time, like the current one right now, Shadowbringers, and that's the best rated one out of all of them. And it's not because it's just added content; it's the story of Shadow. Okay, now it's the story of Shadowbringers, and you go through the whole campaign of it, and it's about 40-50 hours long, and it's just this whole full RPG of that new story that they brought up. But as he keeps making new stories, it's almost like Final Fantasy 14, you could say 14.1, 14.2, 14.3, 14.4 is what they feel like, because they're completely separate games and whole new areas that you can travel to, and you get a whole new added story to the game with each expansion.
That's awesome, man. The game is only getting bigger and bigger. I see clearly they're running out of digital copies the other day there. So
yeah. So there was this the most popular WoW player of all time. Blizzard's doing all of this crazy, stupid stuff. They've been complaining for like the last 2 or 3 years, and Activision couldn't be any worse right now as well. So they did something that pissed him off. I can't remember what it was, and he keeps hearing about Final Fantasy 14. So he started playing it, and then about 2 or 3 days later, he just straight declared, like, yeah, this game is way better than World of Warcraft. He moved over actual millions of players over to where they ran out of digital copies to sell for the game. Like they had to work on generating whole new codes because they ran out of.
Can you imagine that?
The game got that big because everyone, like, he wasn't any more popular. And World of Warcraft is huge. I mean, you still have like 20-30 million people sub to that. And so can you imagine there's probably like half of that entire sub base just moving over to Final Fantasy.
What a huge hit that must have been.
Yeah. There's so many interviews on it from the main guy, and the main dude, that's who's working on Final Fantasy 16 because Square likes him so much because he basically saved the game.
The CEO has a stockholder meeting like in 2 weeks after that initial break, and he's like, I'm so screwed.
Oh my god.
Because nothing could take World of Warcraft down, and well, now the tides have finally shifted.
Yeah,
it only took like 20 years.
They've dropped players quite a bit. I mean, they're still huge, obviously, but they've definitely dropped. So
because I mean, World of Warcraft, like the story is just something to get you from point A to point B. This game, you actually feel like you're just playing a real Final Fantasy game, and it just happens to be online.
I'm glad to hear that.
Really is how it feels.
I'm glad to hear that because Final Fantasy is clearly, very well known for their stories. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Nice.
All right.
Good pick. All right. Am I up next? I think.
Yeah.
All right. So my next game is Hollow Knight, which, in my opinion, is not only one of the best games of the generation, but one of the all-time greats. God, I have so many good things to say about this game. Right. So let's start with the fact that these days there's so many games that come out that are like Metroidvania games. Get to this area, you can't progress until you get this ability, and now come back. So I feel that Hollow Knight does this perfectly, like expertly, better than almost every game I played. The art style, in my opinion, is really charming and really. You guys have seen what it looks like, right? Hollow Knight?
Yeah, I've played it.
Oh my god, it looks beautiful. The system with the maps, I'm playing, games these days that are similar type of games, a Metroidvania game, and the maps are pretty simple, which is fine. But Hollow Knight's map is extremely complex, but it's so rewarding when you're unlocking it. And they don't do the normal Castlevania thing where you reach this room and all of a sudden now the area is on your map. No, it's a little different. It's like not only do you have to approach this new area, you have no idea what it's about. It's like a scary approach, and then you have to find the cartographer. And once you get the map from him and you rest at a bench, now the area, it will show up on your map. I just thought that was such a cool, nice touch. Like one of many awesome things that I feel this game does. There's so much rich lore in the game too that if you take the time, just like we mentioned with Mass Effect and Witcher, you take the time to read some of these things, explore a little bit, you start to piece together this. It's on the surface, it's like ridiculous. It's a story about all these insects and a fallen kingdom, but you start to explore all these things. You start to learn about the bosses and what, why they're fighting you. It's not like every boss is this evil villain. Every boss has some reason they're doing something in pursuit of something else, right? So you start to explore this stuff, and not only do you have a game that has solid gameplay, but it also has a really great story. I could go on for this game forever, man. I have only great things to say about it. I'm a huge Souls game fan too, and this game incorporates some of what they do and mixes in their own. You know, you have you die here, you got to start back at this area, work your way over there again. Really tough bosses, and these guys who made Hollow Knight, they're so generous. We got like 4 expansions for free. The game was what, like $25 at launch. It just gets better and better, and then finally announced a sequel that was supposed to be another free expansion.
Best kind of developers giving all the free
Oh
DLC.
my
I
God.
love that's how it is with Stardew, man. Like
Yep.
those small little town developers, man, they put together so much good stuff and it's for
Oh, yeah.
free because they have to make a name for
It's
themselves.
because they
Right.
care and they want to, they want to prove themselves because they
Right.
don't have anything prior to that.
Right.
And they need to be like, we need people to believe in us. So they have to try extra hard.
And
Like
that's
this
where you
is
get
what
the
you
best
could
stuff.
be paying for rather than
Right,
those
right.
big franchises that make you pay and then you get like a 3 out of 10 DLC where you're just sitting there left like, what is that?
Yeah, and I feel that
Spider-Man's DLC was apparently weak, right?
It was
Yeah,
very weak.
yeah, it was
It felt
really
very short, and I was like, "Is this just like
I
a
never
normal
played it.
mission that I did
So-
in the game that took 20 minutes?"
So compare those. You have Spider-Man, who's made by Insomniac Studios, this huge, hundreds of people probably making it. And then you got Team Cherry. It's like a few guys working their ass off. They really believe in this game. They really care about. I mean, there's like blogs you can
Those
follow.
are the games that come by from the heart right there.
Oh,
Whenever
yeah,
it's a
yeah.
small group, like they're all on board with it. They don't have to go to like the board of
Right.
directors and pitch them this idea and then hope that he agrees.
And be like,
and then they
I
sign-
don't think people will like
Yeah,
that.
They
No.
sign a bunch of people to like do certain parts of the game. And this is like they're doing all of it.
Dude, it's
Yeah, those
true.
mechanics aren't really that popular. I don't think you should do
Well,
that.
that's what I love about it. These guys put the game out. It was pretty popular on Steam for a while, and then it came to Switch, and it really blew up, and it started taking off and gaining more popularity. And then these guys are doing quality of life updates, but then they're also doing expansions. And
I'm playing it right now because
my
of Game
God,
Pass.
it's
so
so-
I'm
it's-
like 10 hours in right now. If
Oh,
it wouldn't
man.
have appeared on Game Pass, I wouldn't have ever tried it.
I'm
Because
so
again, like,
glad.
I don't have to technically buy it.
Right,
And
right.
then I'm just like the environments, talk about the environments changing.
Oh,
The
my
environments
God, yeah.
changed very drastically. And it's really pretty.
It sure is, yeah, and it's another game again where nothing feels the same. You have the
Oh, sorry, one more thing.
ahead.
It's 120 frames a second, and
Oh my
there's
God, that
about
makes me
100 games that are in that category. And then that was one of the other reasons why I was like, well, I'm purposely looking for 120 frame games, and that ended up being one of them. And that was another reason why. I
So
jumped on.
jelly. I want to try it.
It is so smooth.
it
It
feels so good.
I feel like the action is taking place almost before I hit the button. I don't know how to describe it.
I
It reads your
want to try
mind.
that so badly. That sounds amazing. I can only imagine.
I get exactly what you're saying. I played the game when it first dropped, so I was playing at 60, but I would love to revisit and play at 120 because I can imagine it. The game is so, you have a little nail, that's your main weapon. You have charms that you equip that do different things, right? These are the mechanics are somewhat simple, and then you can hold a button to use soul to recharge your energy. But you mix those 3 things together, and then you put all the nuance in, and the way they design the bosses, and the way they design the enemies, and now all of a sudden you have this really complex, really big game. And when you're fighting bosses, I mean, the movement is real fast, but it's very deliberate. So I could see how a frame rate boost could do huge things for that game. Man, it's one of my all-time favorites. And like I was saying before, they took an expansion that was supposed to come out, and they were like, you know what? This expansion is getting so big, and people really want more, and we're just gonna make this into a whole new game. So now they announced a new game a few years ago, and everyone's been waiting. We're just waiting for one day. Please just tell us. Please tell us this game is coming out.
There was that Nintendo Indie Showcase, and a lot of people were expecting them to show that.
Yep. Every time.
The comments were just full of people being like, "Where's what was it called? Silk Song?
Silk Song, yeah. Hollow Knight Silk Song is going to be a sequel.
That's all I saw in the comments,
dude.
And that's cool though. Like everyone's wanting a game that bad.
I can't wait. I'm super excited. The game. They've shown some footage of the new game, and they took a pretty prominent character in part 1, and that is now the main character of the new one. They don't just reskin it and here's the new character. They play the same way as the original Hollow Knight, which was the main character in the first one. No, this is like. They play completely different. They play like they did when you fought them in the game, because you fight them at some point in the game.
Shovel Knight, whenever you play the other
Yeah.
characters,
Yep.
they play completely different.
Way
So I'm
different.
imagining it being like that.
It's kind of like that, but the level of quality to this game,
Hollow
I
Knight's a lot
can't
better than
believe.
Shovel Knight. It
Oh
really
yeah, I
is.
think it's leaps and bounds better. I mean, this game to me again is one of the all-time greats. It takes all those genres, it blends them together, and it does it almost better than a lot of them. Even the like the punishing mechanic of okay, you die and you start back here and you lose your stuff. But I don't know, man. It just doesn't feel
Oh, let's just
unfair.
say in case people don't even know, it's a
Right.
Metroidvania, by the
Yeah,
way.
yep, definitely Metroidvania. I'd say mixed with like some of the Soul stuff going on in there, but the way you play it, it feels like just a really precise sort of like combat, on a 2D plane like that. So can't recommend this game enough. I think everyone should play this game, and if you really get into it, start digging into the lore and watching videos and stuff. And the last thing I'll say about this game before we move on is they've tackled so many different game modes in this game. They just keep building on it. First, you had your general Metroidvania. I spent a ton of hours in this game, but if you're playing through, you're not doing too
Wait,
many
so it
side.
changes? Because I'm only like 10 hours in.
Yeah,
What do you mean?
so what I mean by that is not necessarily that the core game itself changes. The core game is a Metroidvania. You play through, you beat bosses, whatever, right? There's other modes that they've since introduced. Like there's a boss rush mode, but these guys can't just do everything like everyone else does it. It's not just a go fight these bosses and go get as far as you can. They really changed it up. It's like you have these gauntlets. Each gauntlet has a certain number of enemies in it, and they're very deliberate the way they pick these. They have this one is a little tougher in this aspect, so let's balance it out with this. Like you can tell they put a lot of thought into this. But then on top of that, there's 4 little modifiers that you get put on. And so one of the modifiers, for example, is a big thing in the game is healing, obviously, right? You have it takes a second, you sit, you hold A button or whatever, and you recharge and you get a little bit of health back. And if you turn on this modifier, you can do that, but it takes double the amount of time. So that's one. Or your nail, your main weapon, does a quarter of the damage it normally does. So you can turn these modifiers on. Think like Halo with skulls or something, maybe, You could turn these modifiers on, and it's not just bragging rights. There's things you get for it. So if you do all 4 modifiers on Gauntlet 1, then when you get to Gauntlet 2, you have like this meter somewhat filled up. If you fill the meter all the way up, now when you do the final gauntlet, which is ridiculous, it's like 100 bosses in a row, you have these rooms that have open, and now you get health back when you drop into these rooms, or you get a boost or whatever. It's just like crazy how, again, all free, this huge mode they added to include this stuff. And I can't beat all of it. I'm pretty good at the game, but the final gauntlet is something ridiculous. Like I said, like 70, 80 bosses in a row with minimal breaks in between. And again, all added for free. It's just,
It reminds me of, Smash Bros. Melee, where you have,
oh yeah.
what
What
do
was
they
the
call it?
mode? All
All
Star?
Star.
All Star. Yep.
Yeah.
That is actually a good comparison. That's not the only thing, too. They added, first of all, like I said, they added quality of life expansions where it's like, we fix these behaviors, these issues, whatever, whatever. But then they came out with like this one called the Grim Troop. This group has descended upon the city that you're in, and they're in this one remote area, and you have to try to get in there and see what's going on. And there's this boss, and then his cronies are there, and then there's a story, and it's a whole side thing, and they just added in for free. Again, it's just an unbelievable game, man. Definitely keep playing that game.
Because I'm in the very beginnings and I love it a lot.
I need to play this game, is what I'm finding out right
it's
now.
amazing, man. And if you can, me personally, if I was to play the game again, I'm gonna play it on PC now that I know it and I want to experience it the best I can. But if you're someone who maybe you haven't played it, you want to.
Got like a 144 hertz monitor and all that.
Oh
right?
yeah, I have all that stuff. So now to play it, especially when you told me it's 120 now, I didn't even realize that. So that's gonna make me want to dive back in. But I played it on Switch originally, and it was such a great experience because it's a perfect game for Switch. It's like you sit down, you traverse this new area a little bit, maybe try the boss once, and then just put your Switch in sleep mode and keep it moving. So I think that's a great spot, or even on your phone or whatever it is. Some sort of portable aspect of it. I think.
Yeah, it works for me a lot with Xbox because Xbox has quick resume. So I'll be playing a game, switch to Hollow Knight, play for like an hour or two, and then switch back to whatever game, and it'll just stay where it's at. You know what I mean? And then I'll pull it on my phone in bed and then keep playing again.
Right.
So the fact that it adds that, it's almost like I'm pretty much playing Switch.
I would just recommend, if either of you guys, I know Tim, you're already playing it, and Jake, if you get into it, I would just recommend that you play the game and you try your best to go in blind. Now the game can get difficult at times, so yeah, you get stuck. look it up, but don't start looking up everything as you go, because there's so many great surprises and so many things that you stumble upon that are like, it wouldn't be the same if
That's
you
such a
looked it
good
up.
point, because
Yeah.
when I first started, I wanted to look up, because I would get lost and I'd be like,
Right,
where do I
right.
go? And I'd want to look it up, and I was looking up and all that. But then I started to realize, like, let me just try to find, and then I go to some completely other area I didn't even feel like I was supposed to go to,
Right.
and end up finding a whole bunch of new cool stuff.
It's so
And I was
cool,
like,
man.
man, I'm actually glad I went to this new area. I wouldn't have even been if I wouldn't have gotten lost.
The game,
and it almost rewards you for getting lost.
right. That's what they want. They want you to go. I mean, look at the map system. You get to this. There's an area that's, if you're starting at the, when you start the game, you're more toward the top of the map. There's an area
Yeah.
that you will eventually get to that's way down. It's like dirty, it's dark, it's like these creatures are scurrying behind you. It's purposely, setting like this horror stage. And when I first got there, I wanted to do the same thing. I don't know what to do. I keep losing, I keep dying. I want to look this up, but I didn't. And I kept going. And then, all of a sudden you finally find the map guy, the cartographer, and he's like, oh, here you go. Here's a map. It only costs you this much. And then all of a sudden now you have the whole map explored. It just felt so great, man. You got to keep me updated on how it goes as you play that game, because I love that game so much, man. It's a 3.
Yeah, number 3, 100% certain you both have played this, but Ghost of Tsushima.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, we all played it.
Is
It's
a
amazing.
masterpiece.
I mean, it deserves on this list. Easy.
I haven't even completed the game yet, and it's on my
Me
list.
either.
The PS5
like
version
20 hours.
coming out this month.
Yeah, jump on that.
I'm 100% getting it day one, because I've been holding off on playing it until this update came out.
Oh, cool.
Because I got so far in it, and I'm like, man, it was already breathtaking. I mean, it's honestly,
it really is.
It's right.
It's one of the prettiest games I've ever seen.
Yeah, that's where I'm getting. It's right there with Breath of the Wild, and one of the prettiest games I've ever seen. Like,
oh yeah,
the colors, just the atmosphere. It just feels so like back in the day. I don't know how to describe it. Like, it's just, it's so peaceful and calming. And it's such a unique game.
You know what it reminds me of a lot? It's kind of weird, but Wind Waker.
Yeah.
Like, it gives you that
very
good
comparison. Very good comparison. It's just everything about the game, the skill tree, the action, the fighting, the acting, everything about it so far has just been completely breathtaking, and something I've never experienced before in a game. There's so much to it. It's what I wanted Assassin's Creed to be before it got repetitive, but this doesn't feel repetitive, because everything that you're doing has got like different meaning, and it's its own thing, and it's just such a more in-depth fighting game than people give it credit for. I mean, you have to be able to change between who you're going against, whether they have a shield, a spear, a sword. If they're a big guy, I mean, you have to navigate between 4 separate classes, all while fighting. It's just such an in-depth game that I don't feel like gets enough credit.
The games, let's just talk about the stances, right? With the different, like, okay, I got to
exactly.
Stances are so cool. The water stand,
awesome,
you
dude.
have to switch stances depending on who you're fighting, and you have to be able to do it on the fly. I mean, you're in a big battle, and there's tons of different enemies.
If you can almost purposely pick the wrong stance, and it can kind of work in your favor.
Yeah,
have you ever noticed that?
It can sometimes, but I know that you guys are still playing. I beat the game, and not only did I beat it, I don't even go for platinums. I have 2 platinums ever: Bloodborne and this game, because I couldn't stop playing it. It was just
we gotta play the Legends mode together.
Oh my god, yeah! Oh, certainly.
Yeah, me and Jake been playing it, and it would be amazing if all 3 of us could play.
I'll jump into it with you guys, but
100%.
One thing that I know people talk about this, but I'll bring it up anyway, is the way that the game made you want to get collectibles without being so blatant about it, and it's just kind of, you're just exploring.
Dude, yes, you see a little fox and you go and follow the fox, or you see a bird and you go and follow the bird.
Right. Petting the fox
So
at the
cool.
end is so rewarding. Even
So
though it's
well
the same
done
thing every time.
And the wind, howling, and you follow the wind. It's just
when you're near a scroll and your controller has a heartbeat, I am just like, I will find this. Like, the moment it syncs with my heartbeat, I'm like, where's this at? Like, and not to mention, like we just mentioned, playing together, it has an online mode that they're adding a 2v2 PvP mode to play. You know how hype that's going to be? It's like, it has its own online story mode. It has the online raids. Now it's going to have a PvP mode. Like, you play the single player,
awesome,
and it takes your breath away. now they're adding multiplayer to it. It's just like its own extra thing that's just amazing. I mean, people play GTA, they have GTA Online, and it's like its own thing. That's how that feels in terms of like hype. And just, I feel like it's nobody really plays the online because it wasn't something that was with the game when it launched. But if you're still playing the game or you're coming onto it late, it's going to be extremely fun to play that game online.
I can't believe they gave it away for free. That just blows my mind. It's another like the Hollow Knight thing we were talking about. Like these guys put out this big multiplayer mode that people really enjoyed, and they could have charged for it. They could have charged even $10 for it if they wanted.
I would.
No.
Everyone I know would have paid too. I don't know anyone who would not have paid for that online mode. The fact that it's free is just icing on the cake with the cherry on top.
Awesome. I mean, the best thing about the game is, okay, you're walking in a field of flowers, right? And then the wind blows. And just the way that looks, because it's such a bright purple, for example, or something.
And like we were talking Breath of the Wild, whenever you're like changing environments, it feels the exact same. When you go from being in a forest to an open like pasture of flowers to being on a beach side, it just feels like you're in a huge open world. And like some section you have the sunflowers and then the lilies, and it's just like each one looks so uniquely different and like a whole different, your TV's experiencing every type of color built into it when you play this game.
And it's almost like Zelda when you find the shrines. You know, you find the shrines in these things where it's like those challenge shrines. And then you get like some cool equipment at the end or a charm.
When you guys get further, because like I said, I beat the game. You're going to see, Jake, I don't know how far you are, but when you start to meet some of these characters and you start to, I would highly recommend, this is not most people say in games like this, do this main storyline, do some side stuff. I think you need to do every single side mission in this game because they're all worth it.
That's probably I feel like that's my downfall, but I love it so much I don't even care. I have to do every side mission before I progress. If there's the side mission, screw the main mission. I'm going to be so overpowered by the time I get to it, it's not going to matter. The side missions are what make these games for me because there's so much to learn other than the main missions. So many people probably just play the main missions and a few side quests here and there just to get through the game.
Well, when you're playing a main mission, it'll reference a character you wouldn't have known if you wouldn't have done the
exactly. And you really feel like you get your money's worth when you do that. I mean, I'm taking this game from potentially being a 30 to 40 hour game, turning it into a 90 to 100 hour game. I mean, I'm getting 60 more hours of entertainment by doing missions that are of quality to the main missions. I mean, I have yet to play a side mission where I was like, well, that was kind of pointless. I thought, man, that was rewarding. Like, thank you. Now I can level up. I'm closer to getting my next skill. Like, I'm never thinking that.
Hey, Jake, did you ever play the little side mission with the guy who has the daughter? You find like the doll or whatever and then end up finding her like dead.
Oh my God!
Oh, dude, there's so many heartbreaking scenes that have happened in that game. Like, there's one mission where you have to tell this dude who ran off from his wife, who got like kidnapped from the dude's probably raped, and you have to go like find him and be like, she didn't make it, and he literally just feels like such a sissy bitch for the rest of his life. Just remember that, like, he ran from her rather than saving her or even attempting. Like, if someone came to my girl, I'm dying. It is what it is. Like, I'm gonna do everything I can to prevent that.
That game is so emotional, man. There's so much that going on.
It's such an adult game that, like, whenever I first got it, I remember Tim telling me it's like an adult Breath of the Wild, and that's exactly how it feels. It's
that's
like
a good way.
It's a good, mature game, just the version of it, open world, everything about it I can compare to Breath of the Wild.
If there's one side mission that you get to the end, maybe you're getting a little burnt out, and if there's one you have to do the one for the older lady, the lady who used to take care of you. I forgot her name. She's an older woman. She grew up with you. She used to watch you when you were a kid or something. I don't remember her name, but you'll know who I'm talking about when you see her. She's got a short story arc, but man, if it's
I know who you're talking about.
Oh, it's amazing stuff, man. You got to play that one through. But yeah, great game. We'll talk about that more, I'm sure, when the DLC drops. They're adding an island, right? So I'll jump back in.
Yep, it's going to have like its own new section. So I'm assuming once we're all going to be in that, and then we need to do online. And real quick before we go to the next game with Tim, that is probably one of my favorite things. Is the online side of the game has nothing to do with story. You can play the game for an hour and then switch to online, and it's a completely different thing. It's its own game. You're not going to get spoiled by anything that happens. It's like,
well, see, that's the thing though. We don't. So whenever it first launched, it actually said, it gave me a warning saying, hey, you should probably clear the game before you play this. But we played maybe 5 hours of it and we saw nothing relating to the story.
Yep.
I'm guessing at the end, maybe it connects the two.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's a chance that happens, but even not even like doing the story online missions, like you can do the raids, and that it's just so hyped going from one section of the map to the other, fighting waves of enemies. Everyone has their own like skill trees, and it's such a good game. But
wait till you guys get to the end, man. Please revisit this when you get to the end. We have to talk about it because
sure.
I'd say if you can try to take some time when you're getting towards the end. Maybe it'll be clear when you're getting to the end. Sit down and do that whole last area. Just sit down and play the last 2 or 3 hours. It's so worth it. It's like an awesome movie that wraps up.
Oh, and Legends, the online mode, actually, like, you pick different classes for your characters, and they actually give you stuff that the main game doesn't have. So it is original things inside of Legends.
Yep, that's true. Because I've played it a little bit, and it definitely has its own thing going on. But man, oh god, I can't wait to talk to you guys about the ending when you get there. So
Tim, you're up.
Where am I at?
Number 3.
God,
3.
Death Stranding.
Brave choice, putting that at 3.
Okay.
I realistically, like, I was debating 1 or 2.
I have yet to play this game, and I've heard when it first came out, I feel like there was such a backlash. And then after that initial backlash, all I've heard is nonstop good things about how great this game is.
I loved it too, man. It was an awesome game.
Bro, at the end, I promise you will cry like a baby.
Oh, yeah.
I need to play through this. I've heard too many good things. I gotta finish Ghost, and then I'm on to this game. So I need to know why it's so great. Please tell me.
Take it away.
I mean, first of all, why I got the hate in the beginning, even I was giving it hate. I mean, it is the weirdest. You're like, this is the dumbest thing ever. You're all you are is this like UPS guy just carrying packages on your back, walking from one location to another. Why the hell would I like this?
It's so hard when you say it out loud. Like, I know how great this game is, but when you say it out loud to someone, it sounds so
I heard. That is what I heard. It's like, it feels like you're the post office, and that's the whole game. That's what I was hearing. Is that true?
But no, there's a bunch of hidden layers that you end up finding out as you keep going, and it involves to something way grander. That's just like the beginning, and it almost kind of throws you off because you think that's how it's going to like continue, but it doesn't. Now, you are technically bringing packages like throughout the game. You work for this company, and you are delivering packages to people who can't. Basically, the world's in this state to where the very moment it rains, it's called like timefall, I think is what they use, to where if you get hit by the rain, it ages you dramatically. A few drops will hit on you. Now you're going to have like drops of age on your arm or something like that. So, and it happens every like few hours. And there's a bunch of other stuff that I don't even want to get into on why the world is just a huge mess. So people are literally just stuck up in bunkers, and they can't really like go and get anything that they need to stay alive. So you're having to bring it to them. You're having all of this equipment, all of these items you have to make sure that you yourself can sustain the outside. The outside is just this super grim, dark world going on with so many obstacles and so many crazy enemies and villains and people just trying to shut anybody down that's out on the outside. You do end up getting weapons. There's a lot of Metal Gear as to it, to where like you'll see a base and you need to like sneak and get an item outside of the base. But if you were to get detected, it's really, really hard. I mean, you can do it, but it's really hard to like wipe the whole base out. I mean, it's way harder than like you play Metal Gear and trying to wipe a whole base out, which is already way hard on its own. And you're not even meant to do that. This is like a whole nother level of you really don't have much at your disposal to get rid of people. And you really have to, tread really carefully. But at the same time, you have these packages that are super important. And as you're traversing the land, you could trip over the most basic of rock. You damage the package, and now it's like 70% of 100%. I know, right? And then you're just like so debating, like, oh, should I just restart? Because you don't want to like deliver it in bad shape.
It's trying to imagine this game, and just hearing this description, I'm like, what in
but you'll be carrying a lot of packages. You come across this
right now
little village of people, so you almost like want to put the packages down, go inside of
You're talking packages, like all
wait.
Back on
his
your back.
adventure around.
Hold on, Tim. Let me throw some more weirdness at him. All right, hold on. So to go off what Tim was saying, not only would you have this happen, you're walking. Imagine that. Think like someone wearing a backpack. What that looks like. Okay. Now imagine 10 feet higher on your backpack, straight up. You're walking as you bend down. This huge, long string of crates is just bending forward with you or bending backwards. Okay. So you're walking down this hill. You stumble. You trip. All your packages fall all over the place. You're hurt. You're picking
There's
your
like
packages.
7 boxes all scattered across the
Oh,
mountainside.
it gets weirder though, right? Okay, so I fall. I'm like, damn, I just fell. All right, I go to all my packages individually. I'm looking at them. I'm seeing their damage. Okay, so I pull out my spray. I start spraying on my packages to repair them, to get them back to a nice space. Then after I put them all back on my back, I rearrange them, and then I walk a little further and I go to my timefall shelter, okay, where I rest and my stuff gets nice back to normal. I take a little nap, and like this game is so weird, man. I don't even know what to say about it, but it's awesome.
This is your number 3 game, Tim.
But the amazing thing this game did that I think, besides, I mean, it's Kojima. This guy always does weird stuff. But one thing this game did that I thought was incredible, that if you played it today, you would benefit even more from it than probably Tim or I did, is the game, as you played more and more people around the world played it, you started getting community belt things.
Yes.
Right. So people would have, oh my God, you're at the bottom of this hill. You can't get up. You don't have a ladder. Someone might have left a ladder there for you. Okay, here's a ladder. Or you're heavily damaged. Someone might have left a shelter for you. Like people around the world, people will build roads and bridges. And now
it's all
because
connected?
it's all connected, and because Tim and myself and 1,000 other people around the world slowly built this road together, I added my contribution.
It's the user who even left it there. So it literally say X Shadow Elite left a ladder for you.
So
you can use
maybe I should look into this.
It's
now.
so cool how it happens, because you're playing through and you're stuck. You fall, like we were just joking about. You fall at the bottom of this cliff. All your stuff is there. You're on an important mission, and all of a sudden you look to your right, and there's like a little package that someone purposely went out of their way and dropped for someone in your exact position. And now all of a sudden
you can decide to leave packages for other people to use.
You're playing the game, Tim, and you leave a package, and then me and Rudy are playing at the same time. Is it there for both of us, or is it only there for whoever gets it first?
I think it depends. If we're
no
friends,
one really knows.
If we're friends, we can see each other's stuff. If we're on each other's friend list, I know that for sure. And then it's
if
also
we're on friend list, you'll see it regardless.
Right.
And then other people outside your friends list, you will also see here and there based on like how the server, what they decided to keep and leave. I don't know. That's kind of random. But as long as you're on your friends list, you're going to see any of our stuff as you're going through the game. And so I built roads, I built bridges, I built, I don't know what you call them, the things like you glide on, those wires.
Oh, like the zip
so
lines. Yeah. Those were so oh my God. The zip lines would come in such clutch sometimes. I'd traverse this whole mountain. I'd be like, oh, okay. It was hard to get up this mountain. I don't think I was supposed to go this way, but I got up here. I'm in good shape now. And then all of a sudden I see a zip line. Oh, thank you. Whoever this random person was, you leave them a little like. Yes, you can like people's stuff.
That's
you leave them a like. You're like, thank you. And you zip across. The game is incredible.
Yeah, you can actually leave them likes.
Yeah.
So then, like, when you go back and play, it'll be like, hey, you got like 20 likes from different players because you helped them out with whatever.
Right.
Nice. That sounds good.
It's a really cool game, and the story is, I gotta say, in my opinion, it's one of Kojima's more tame stories. Like, I was able to understand everything the first time through. So,
because it's not a franchise like any other game. There's like a series that you need to play another game and another game, so you know the context. This is all contained within one game. Right. So it can technically make sense because you're not having to play anything extra or add anything from the outside. Plus, it's not based in anything on like Metal Gear Solid technically pulled from like the 60s and 70s with its different wars that were going on and stuff. Yeah. It's not doing that here. So you can make sense of it all because it's all its own contained story and world.
The way they told the story too, I was very impressed. It's like you'll play this chapter, right, and then you'll get this exposition dump on you, right? Fine, but then you get to one chapter, a few chapters, and I believe it was chapter 3, where the chapter just seems to go on forever. It's like this is the longest chapter ever, but you're rewarded with a pretty good story bit that kind of gets you going from there.
Yeah,
and then
so let me explain why it's number 3. So, like, yeah, that's the gameplay, right? You actually are carrying packages on your back, and you got these tools that you can use at your disposal to help you traverse these mountains and these crazy environments. It's more than just mountains. You'll have to cross, like, huge lakes and rivers and have to cross, I don't know, almost like these volcanic rocks. And it can get really challenging with all of that, but that isn't why it's good. If that's all the game was, no one would care. care. Why it's good is the story. And so you'll like deliver something that someone really badly needed, and then you start finding out all these layers to like the story you were talking about, Ghost of Tsushima, where like dude ends up running away, girl ends up finding out like dead and have to come back and all that. You'll have like really emotional moments like that of characters that you're talking with and getting close with end up doing really messed up things or really, really crazy things like Heartman, to where, okay, let me try to explain this. There's this guy called a Heartman to where he has a pacemaker in his heart where every, I want to say 2 minutes, he like completely knocks out and then comes back to life. So
Jake is probably like, "What the heck are you saying right now?"
I'm
and anytime, listen, anytime he dies, anytime he technically dies, because he needs to die. When you die, you get to go to this Stranding world of like this, basically.
The beach.
Yes. And then on this beach is where all these dead people are. And so he's trying to communicate with his dead wife. So he purposely keeps killing himself every 2 minutes.
This went from being a UPS game to like the most in-depth game I've ever heard of in my life.
It's out there, man. It's
UPS simulator to craziest shit.
He dies, has 2 minutes to hurry up and try to solve whatever he's trying to solve so he can bring his wife back, but there's so much work to be done. And then so whenever he comes back to life, he starts writing a bunch of stuff down. He starts trying to figure out the next part of the puzzle, so that way when he dies, he can continue working at it again. 90% of the game, you're carrying around this baby. The baby is like attached to like the front of you where the package are on the back, and you can't damage the baby at all either. But no one's able to give birth at this point in time. So this is the only baby that exists. So you're trying to care for it because you're trying to see maybe this. Right. There's all these deep, weird things going on in the background that I wish I could explain, but it's so hard to explain. Like, you actually deal with the president of the United States in this game. You deal with the black dude that's really popular actor.
Oh, yeah.
He just got recruited is it the same dude that got recruited as Knuckles? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, Ibras, whatever his name is.
No, it's not him. He kind of looks like him, but it's not him. But
he looks like him.
Yeah, he does. I forgot his name, but the guy, he has some sort of important role in the story. I just can't remember. I can't remember what his exact.
He's the guy. Is he the guy in Battlefield 4? The main actor did. Maybe it's him instead. Anyway, I don't know. He's in a lot of film and TV and all of that. He's a really popular actor. He plays a huge prominent role in this game. There's a lot of big actors in this game, actually.
Oh, do you remember his name so we can tell Jake? Do you remember the guy's name that you're talking about, or no?
His name's Craig, isn't it?
No, I don't.
No, it's Die Hard. All right, Jake, listen to some names.
Die Hard Man.
If you type in Death Stranding cast, listen to a few of these names, all right? You start off kind of simple, Sam, Cliff, then you have Fragile, Mama,
Hold on. Sam is Norman Reedus.
Yeah,
he's actually a really good actor in this game.
He's great in it. Cliff is Mads Mikkelsen, right? Then you have Fragile, which is just some random person.
He does look like
Idris Elba, yeah.
Mama, Tommy Jenkins.
Oh yeah, yep, that's him. Mama, Deadman, Heartman, Die Hard Man, and Higgs. Those are some names for you for the characters in this game.
Mama is my favorite character.
Mama's great. I love her. She's awesome.
My god. So she literally cares for these babies, and you can't see them, but she can see them. And so you have to like deal with all of her problems with her sister. I don't know.
Honestly, I don't even know how much more we should say really about it, because everyone needs to stumble upon this and be as confused as we are at first, and then everything starts making sense.
Yeah, I'm already insanely lost, but if I play this game, I'm not going to remember any of this stuff because of how out there and crazy it is.
It's a special
Honestly,
game.
the opening scenes where they give the mission to you and all that first hour or two, dude, it's gonna hit you hard.
Yeah.
You're gonna get huge invested real fast.
Crazy thing is I haven't seen anything, like I haven't watched a lot of videos of this game, so like I'm going into it with no idea what to expect. I have an image I seen online of like what I think the game looks like, so I can't even begin to imagine what you guys are explaining. So I imagine when I play it, like it's gonna be absolutely insane. But I'm looking forward to it, and I'm sure I can see why it's on your list. I've heard such good things about it, but yeah, I'm excited to play it and check it out.
You either love it or you'll hate it. There's no middle ground with this game.
Yeah,
Do y'all know the band Churches? They did an original song
Yeah.
for this game, and they called it Death Stranding. And it's one of my favorite songs, like, period now.
I really like
listen to it so often. Every time I hear it, though, it brings so many emotions because, God, if you only knew where the story takes you with the whole, like, people dying in beaches, and there's this huge, like, nukes that go off, and these crazy, like, hentai tentacle big black dudes that just straight destroy people, and they'll lay off, like, the people themselves will explode and they'll wipe out whole cities because of their explosion. It's so weird.
It's a special game, man. That's for sure. I have fond memories of that game. So I remember playing it though, and my wife occasionally will walk by and kind of just comment like, "Oh, this game looks cool. Oh, it's a shooter. This is a whatever." I remember she walked by and she sat for a sec. She's like, "What are you doing right now? Are you delivering stuff? Like, you have a pizza?" I literally had pizza at one point, and I was bringing it to someone. She's like, "What is going on with this guy?" I'm pressing the button. It's like scanning the topography of the world. She's like, "Okay, I don't know this one. I don't know what's happening here."
And then she walks in 2 hours later, and then there's an actual World War II.
Oh
yeah.
I know what you're talking about.
You actually get guns later in the game, and you actually take place in the middle of World War II at one point.
It's such a crazy game, man.
I know for a fact that out of each of our next upcoming games that we all have a common game in there, but I'm going to leave it at that.
I think you're right. All right. Anything else?
I don't think you're right. Anyway, all right. Let's continue.
All right. Well, speaking of what Jake just said, yeah, my next one is Breath of the Wild. I mean, we talked it up a ton already. There's no way this is not a game I could ever be like, oh, well, it's on 2 of their lists, so I'm going to substitute it. No, I can't, because clearly we know how great we all feel this game was. I think we've already talked it up enough. Only thing I'll add that maybe I didn't mention before is the shrines. I believe there was 120, and then they added a few more, maybe, if I'm not mistaken. Those shrines,
you're right.
Those shrines to me, I couldn't believe how much fun it was. Just kind of going on your map. Here's another thing that Ubisoft and some of these other open world developers can take note of is.
Hold on. Yes. How does Zelda do it the first time they ever do it?
They did it so much better. So much better. But that's Nintendo. That's why people want to act like, well, why is Nintendo still relevant? It's because they do stuff like this. Okay, they. I
would understand if it was like their 4th attempt at it.
Right,
it was their first attempt at it, and they completely did the best with hiding the shrines.
Yeah, you could go to a tower. Okay, get to the top of the tower. Click on your map, or excuse me, before you click on your map, you'd look out into the distance.
You have to find the item yourself.
Right. You scan it
yourself, looking over.
I love that. I love looking out into the distance.
Why didn't other games do this?
Put a beacon down, and then now it's on your map, and you're like, I'm going there. I want to see what's over there. And next thing you know, you're there. You're checking it out.
Because what Far Cry, you're climbing to the top of a tower.
Right.
First of all, it's a really generic tower. It's not a mountain.
Oh yeah.
Cool. Yep. Anyway, whatever. You're at the top of this generic teleconnections tower, and then it just puts like 50 things on your map.
50 question marks all on your map.
You guys
like, come on, man. I loved the way they did it. It was so much more creative. I felt that it was my map. I was creating as much as I wanted to do. You know, it wasn't these things that I'm like, oh, here we go. I got to go check this out and this out. Discovering the shrines from there. Oh, all of a sudden I get to the top of this, this mountain or tower, whatever it is. And all of a sudden I see a sort of like little, like the design of the shrine, like a little edge peeking out behind a cliff. Oh, I didn't see that before. You click it, you sail down. Now you found a new shrine. I never got tired of doing that. I think the only thing that will make it better is
a shrine you found from forever far away. You find 4 shrines along the way.
Trying
to finish.
There were some shrines in that game that I swear to you, like in the craziest of places.
Huge puzzles just to get in the shrine,
I'll
even
never
though you
forget
see it.
The one that comes to mind that I think of first is the one where you're given 3 pictures zoomed in of the map, like very zoomed in.
Oh, yeah.
And you have to go find where that is on the map. And you're like, where in the heck is this? So you pull up the big map, zoom out, and you're like staring at the screen for a solid 5 minutes trying to find it.
You have to go find those angles,
you gotta
take the photo, go to the other
3
side,
of them.
take the angle. Yeah. And then you're like, oh, now I know where it is because
And that's one
location.
shrine. It's like, it's insane. And one thing we didn't talk about in the last one, this is the first Zelda game to give out, like, to have DLC and doing the trials of the,
we didn't talk about
master.
that. How did we miss that?
The trials for the Master Sword.
It was like what 20 levels, and it kept getting harder and harder.
Yeah,
that was so cool.
And you could do it without any weapon at all. It was you go in bare and that's it, and you work your way up. I can't believe we missed that. What a great addition to an already fantastic game. I mean,
the best area period, in my opinion, was the maze. Remember the maze?
Yeah, that's where you were like in the heart of the people who give you the seeds, the Korok seeds, right?
Oh, yeah. And how about the island? You guys ever stumble
the
upon
island where you lose all your stuff?
Oh my god, I remember.
So frustrating.
The island is exactly what I'm talking about with this game. What makes it such a smart game? Like I was just looking out into the ocean.
You have all this equipment that you've had for like 30 hours. You lose it all. You're so upset.
You're back to the very beginning of the game,
and there's this huge, big monster in the middle of the island that you're somehow supposed to kill, and you have nothing.
Oh my god!
It's back to the Lennel days.
I remember just looking out into the ocean. I'm like, I haven't really explored here. Let me go check it out. And I start heading that way. I land. What's this? What's this island? And then, like you guys said, and then now I'm stuck here for another few hours.
Yeah,
like,
and the crazy thing is like this is gonna sound crazy, but I had already beaten the game when I found the island.
Yeah. Some people never found it for a while.
There's so much stuff to do in game. Like I beat the game, and this was one of the only games that I actually picked up because I had not done the house, nor had I done the city until I had beaten the main quest. And then I was like, wait a minute. I seen people talking about online like how they have their city and their house. I'm like, what are these people talking about? Look it up. I'm like, oh my God, get back on the game. I'm doing all of that. Find the house, make my house as cool as you can get. Go get the best weapons, maximize my house, and then I go build the city by finding each of the villagers that are in each section of the game, which is it's a completely different reason to say let's go explore the entire area of the game.
Now the maze I was talking about was the island maze.
Was on okay.
I know what you're talking about.
I know what you're talking about now. I was confused at first, but that makes sense. But yeah, man, anyway. That's to wrap up because obviously we've talked this game up so much. I'll just end it with I can't believe that this game is even a thing that exists and that we're going to get a better game is what it seems like, at least not too long.
I can't believe that the Switch was able to come up with this game.
I know.
And even the Wii U, I can't believe that Nintendo was able to make such a game like this. Because you think like Twilight Princess came out on GameCube and the GameCube and the Wii at the same time. And it was like, it's not even close to this level of being the size. Like Twilight Princess is my favorite Zelda game, but Breath of the Wild is such a jump from that game in terms of
let's put
how
it this
big
way.
the
I
game
have
is.
a Wii U emulator, and I can play any Wii U game on my computer. When I try to play Breath of the Wild, I can't even run it at 720, 30 frames. I get like 15 to 20 frames. And at 720, I try even lowering it to like 480, and I still can't get 30. I'm like, why is this game chucking so hard and so hard to run? I don't get how they got it running on a Switch.
I'm one to complain about the Switch's performance, how it runs its games, but they optimized Breath of the Wild so perfectly for that system. Really I never felt when I took it into portable mode that I was downgrading or it was like a bad game in like the sense of performance. I'm switching from my 4K TV to my portable, and I'm like, this is the best game I've ever played. And it just speaks volumes in Nintendo and Zelda for how well they've always made their Zelda games. I've never played a bad Zelda game. Even Skyward Sword, where people complained about the controls.
No, we talk about that. Rudy's playing it right now. Skyward Sword is good.
Skyward Sword is so good. And I have friends who complain about like the portable controls and whatnot, but who cares? It's Zelda.
It was so well done though. Like, they actually did it. Like if you have a problem with motion controls as a whole, fine. But don't tell me that they did the motion controls poorly because they did it really well. Dude, actually.
Whenever I had the Motion Plus and I remember the first time I was like, wow, the sword really reacts to where your hand like holding it. I thought it was done so well, but yeah.
Great game, man. I don't think we have to say much more. We've got this game is
amazing, all good. I'll move on to my number 2 game. It was very hard because I'll say I had another game on my list that I didn't put on here. Just to say it real quick, Detroit Become Human was in this place, but I was like, I gotta pull it off. Such a good game.
Rudy, did you play Detroit Become Human?
I did. I really love that game.
It's got to be one of the most in-depth games I've ever questioned my life more in.
So awesome.
But besides that game, my number 2 game is the Resident Evil 2 remake.
Oh, solid
choice. This game was epic. And I know you guys had to have played it, but
Yeah, I love it.
Resident Evil 4 was like, it changed the Resident Evil franchise completely. And playing Resident Evil 2, the remake, it was like it took off from Resident Evil 4. And it was just, when you're playing Resident Evil 2, the graphics are so bad, but you know what's going on. And you're using your imagination playing it when you're younger. Playing it now, your imagination is now on your TV or your whatever screen you're playing on. And it's, oh my God, it's such a beautiful game. And the story is so good. And it's just,
well, the best part about it is the
Just-
scariness of it.
yes,
It
the
is-
horror
It
of
is one
it.
of the scariest games I've
Oh
ever
my
played.
God. I just like playing this game, and I recently played this on PS5 because I had a PS4 initially in the beginning and I sold it like in the very early stages of when it came out. And I got a PS5 and I've replayed all of these games on my PS5 while there's not a lot of games to play on it right now. I've just been going through the PS4 library, so I'm fresh on these games. But man, Resident Evil 2 and even 3 is an honorable mention, but it's just too short.
Yeah, 2 was expertly done.
Dude, it's so well done. And even replaying it as the Claire, you're just like,
Oh yeah.
oh, this is so good.
Oh, cool.
And just Leon is definitely up there. He's got to be my favorite character besides Chris. But Leon is just, dude, I love how he's just a rookie cop and the way the graphics of this game, even playing it, and it's a PS4 game, but the graphics are insane. When you're coming out from the rain and seeing it on like your uniform and stuff, and then you go inside, such a good game that I feel like
I don't know why it's so hard, but they make it so scary, like trying to get the
Yes.
headshots on people.
it's
It's so hard to shoot people in the head.
The craziest part
it
about
takes
this
so many
game, when
shots.
when I started playing it, I'm remembering like this all takes place in this tiny police station that ends up being humongous, and you're spending the whole game in one building essentially. And it's just so well done how they broke it up into sections of the police station where it's like, it feels like you're in like a city by the time you finish the game. You're like, the crazy thing is when you go into 3, and I wish I could include 3 in this, but when you go into 3 and you get into the police station, you're like, this is rookie stuff. Like, you've already completed 2. You know where every single item is. You hop into 3 and
that's a good point.
you know exactly where to go. You're like, I'm not scared of nothing. I know what's behind this door. I know where I'm walking at. It was such a fun experience because I played them back to back. Funny story, Tim actually got me those for my birthday.
Oh,
And I
nice.
played through them, and I was so grateful for that because they were such good games that just like I completely
I
forgot
was
how
pushing
good
a
they
little
were.
too hard on like, hey, like I know 2's better than 3, and everyone will say that, and I agree. Just make sure you do play 3
Yeah.
because
yeah.
it is
Yep.
really, really good, and
And
it kind of goes into one package.
Dude, it's literally like they took how it was with 4 and 5. A lot of people hate on 5 because of how it was like maybe too action packed, or it was like you'll see people complaining that it was too much against like Africans.
I remember.
It felt just like the 4 and 5, how 4 was amazing. And then 5 was great in its own way, but it was so much more action. And that's exactly how I felt
Yeah,
playing
3's a lot more action.
3
than
is
2,
just
yeah.
nonstop action,
Yeah.
whereas 2, you're just in that police station. It's super scary. You have the other cop that's with you that got bit in the beginning, and you talk to him throughout the game.
And it's good
Man.
there's a difference. It would kind of suck if it was just as slow and deliberate 3 as well.
Very
you
good
kinda
point.
need
I
the
wanted
contrast.
yeah, exactly. Like you needed to go to something different after just completing 2. I didn't want that exact same thing because 2 was so in depth that 3 just really changed the pace completely. And it was such a good transition from slow to fast, especially when you went back to the police station because you felt so much more badass because of the weapons that you had. I mean,
Yeah.
in 2, you have like a pistol and your like knife that you can literally like stab someone, and you don't have that knife anymore.
Break
Like
it.
you got to
Yep.
leave it in their neck. Compared to 3, where you're going in with like a machine gun, and like you have no cares in the world playing 3. I was breezing through that.
Shout out to Mr. X too, the scariest dude
Oh,
ever
yeah.
in the
Oh
entire
my
world.
god,
I
100%.
I couldn't
I would
take
get
that guy.
so much anxiety to where I'd want to
Oh
turn
my
the game
God.
off. The moment he was
I
near
did.
me,
I turned it
yes,
off, and
the
I would
moment
turn it
it
off.
he
took
got
like
near
a
me.
week before I got back into it.
100%.
That guy was such a jerk. He made me not want to play the game at times. And I wasn't mad at the
Dude,
game. I was like,
yes.
This is genius design.
I
You
can't
should do
handle
this.
him. He's too intense. sense. It's just scary. I can't play.
100%. I'm playing it in the best parts, and like the scene where the helicopter crashes into the wall, and you're finally able to get to the other side of it, and then you get to the other side, and you're like, "Oh, this is where the helicopter crashed," and then he just grabs the helicopter with one arm and slings it out the door, and I'm like, "Yep, I'm turning the game off. I'm about to have a heart attack. Yep, my anxiety's through the roof. No more."
I couldn't when he first
because you could hear him coming. Like,
yes.
When he first busted into that main room, I was like, "No way did they do this. This is my safe haven. I put the controller down here for a minute, and he bust in there. Oh, I hated it.
Oh my god! Like I
didn't think they would go that far. I didn't think he would actually bust into the safe area.
The scene where you like the part where you would be in like the library and you finally got the tools to move the staircase over. That was when I turned it off with you, and I'm like,
that was my worst moment.
Please stay up top so I can just come down here and move this thing 2 feet to the right and get in this door. But nope,
I took forever on the library section. Finally got it all good, and he comes busting in, and I'm so.
They did such a good job with like putting him in the game. They made me play the game longer because I would turn it off in that moment.
Yeah. Agreed.
Be like, this anxiety's too much. I'm going to go ahead and hop out.
Awesome game and solid pick. And I guess I learned that I need to go ahead and play 3 then because I haven't revisited the remake. So maybe I'll finally.
3 is exactly. It's so good.
It's really, really good. So it's good. Just people just say it's short.
It's yeah.
It's short. That's fine.
It is. Anyway, I beat it in about. Okay, so 2 took me about. I want to say maybe 16, 17 hours, I believe. 3's going to take you like maybe 8 or 9. And that's fine. Like taking your time. It's still super good. And like I said, man, you're going to feel so much more badass than you did in 2. Because in 2, you're opening a door and you're like, God, I don't want to do this. Am I going to turn the game off? 3, you open the door, throw a grenade, flashbang, pull out your rocket launcher. Like, all right, is Mr. X here? Like, you're not scared at all. You know what I'm saying? There's a few scenes where you're like, you get that anxiety level, but in 2, it's happening every time I open a door.
Nemesis does it a few times.
Yeah, Nemesis has that feeling of the Mr. X for sure, but it's about 6 out of 10 on the like comparison scale. But
awesome game.
Just because you have better equipment and you can handle stuff better.
Exactly. But that's why Resident Evil 2 Remake is number 2 on my list. Tim, I'm excited to hear what yours is.
Great choice.
My number 2 is Xenoblade Chronicles X.
I knew this was coming. I knew it.
Yeah, me too. I already know what number 1 is, and it's I love you, Tim.
Oh God, I wanted to put it number 1 so bad. I even wanted to put Death Stranding. I don't know. It's so hard. I've been rambling on to these two guys for the last day or two on it. But the thing is, it's a Wii U game, and it is the only Wii U port we still don't have on Switch.
I know. Why? Crazy. I want that to come to Switch so bad.
Okay, you have the Toad game. Well, we can't have Xenoblade Chronicles X, which I guess is just such a big project. So Breath of the Wild is so great because it's one of the best like open world games we like ever gotten. But Xenoblade Chronicles X came out before then, and it does a lot of things a lot better than even Zelda did. Basically, it's really good. You know how Zelda, like I was saying, you could just go to any random mountain and you go to the very top and there has to be something there. And you're like, oh, thank God they're actually rewarding me for going to crazy places. Xenoblade is 10 times better at that. Like, you will think like there's no reason I should be over here, but only because I've been rewarded so many times in the past for going to these crazy places. I know there's something here, so I'm just going to go anyway. And yes, you get huge rewards out of it. It is so good at rewarding you for going to places you shouldn't be going. The scale of the game, I don't even get how it even run on Wii U. I think it ran at 720 instead of 1080, which is how I was able to do it.
And you had to download 10 packs, don't forget. Remember that? You have to download all those packs individually.
So you download the base game, it's like 10 games, and then it'll give you like 3 packs of each section of the map, and they're like 10 gigs a piece. They won't even fit on your system. Like, if you didn't have a memory card, you weren't playing this game unless you just played the base and didn't install the extra packs. But the extra packs basically added graphics of like higher detail in these areas because they couldn't get it running otherwise. It's just so good because it's so epic. Basically, Earth gets destroyed. You have this huge ship of maybe 100 people. You crash land on this planet. Once you're there, basically all of these things start turning out of like there's this other alien race on the planet as well, trying to also take it over. And they were trying to take it over before you were even there. And then they have this weird agenda that they won't tell you of how, like, there's some connection to them knowing who Earth was. And somehow we were super crappy people. And that's why we got wiped out. And we got wiped out for a good reason. So you're trying to figure out why your planet got wiped out for a good reason, because apparently you're all pieces of crap in their eyes and they're trying to wipe you out. So they see you on this new planet that they're trying to also control, and they're like, oh my god, here's the worst people on planet, what are you doing here? And they purposely try to wipe any human being they possibly see, and they're super mad that you're on this planet that they're trying to conquer.
Do you have to play the other games to understand X?
No. X is almost like it's a completely side game. 1 and 2 you would need to know, but not X. X is his like own thing. I think there may be some connection, but I'm completely unaware
to the
to
Switch.
it.
Do you think that's in the future?
There was a news story I saw of like last year saying that they did want to do it. It would take a lot of work for them to do, but they are really wanting to do it if they can get funding and enough people to help them.
Rudy, have you played any of the Xenoverse games?
Xenoblade,
my bad.
Have you played any of the Xenoblade games?
I feel like I've dipped my toe into the last few, and I never got far enough, really. Like Xenoblade Chronicles X, I remember playing it for a little while.
So it's your Witcher 3, essentially.
Yeah, pretty much. I remember playing Xenoblade Chronicles X, and I distinctly remember a few things that stood out to me. I remember the music was kind of like funky and like weird, and I really liked it. Okay, that was the first thing. And secondly, I just remember thinking, this world is so freaking huge. I've seen these level 60 monsters roaming around. I don't know what I'm doing, but I felt kind of lost a little bit. I didn't really know how to do everything. But did I give it a fair shot? Like, no, not really. So especially the way Tim's talking about this game, I feel like I have to revisit it.
In the beginning, it is really hard to know what to do. And I only know because I've done it before, but I remember the first time I was definitely using a guide.
God, that sounds like what you just said, Rudy. Reminds me of Final Fantasy 15 so much.
Oh, yeah.
Walking around and seeing the big enemies, bro. I'm like, God, do I attack them? They're like these giant dinosaurs.
That is exactly how this is. And what's so cool is that you get to a point where you can actually kill them.
I have to revisit this game, man.
I have Xenoblade 2 sealed. I have the collector's edition. Tim, I think you've seen it, but I bought the
1 and 2. I don't want to say they're bad games. They're good, but Xenoblade Chronicles X is a whole nother lead. It's not even like 1 and 2. It doesn't even really play like 1 and 2. They themselves purposely did it as like a side project or something they really wanted to do, that it's not as story focused. So like 1 and 2, it's just like a Japanese RPG where you really dig deep into your party and you get to know new characters, and it's a very linear story and all of that. Even though they're big worlds, it's still a linear story. With Xenoblade Chronicles X, you're just another person trying to build out this planet to get basically the human race bigger, more populated, and secure and safe. And so you're supplying materials to them, you're supplying food to them, you're helping them build the city bigger and bigger. And your mission is, you're just one of many people who's trying to bring new life to a new planet.
Nice. I watched the videos like on that game, and I had no idea it was such. Is that world bigger than Breath of the Wild? I mean,
I think it is, right?
I think it is.
It's gotta be
because you get mechs in this game, so you get like tank mechs that you can traverse on the ground, and then later on you get these mechs that you can also fly. And so, yeah, you are flying from one edge of the map to another, and it takes a long time. It's got to be bigger than Breath of the Wild, because these mechs aren't slow either. They're very fast.
I just looked it up. Okay, so remember, holy crap. Remember we were talking earlier? I think we said Skyrim was 15 square miles?
Yeah, Breath of the Wild was like 22.
All right, anyone want to let's just take one guess each from you guys. What do you think?
Now I think it's high. I'm gonna guess 39.
Okay, Tim?
It's huge. No, I think it's bigger. I think the game is huge.
Dude.
I'm gonna say like 100.
All right, it's 154 square miles.
Oh my! So
Jesus
it's literally.
Christ.
Hang on, time out. Let me imagine this, because Breath of the Wild was 22. That's 5. That is 7 times the size.
And believe me when I say there is stuff.
That's what I read, dude. That's what I watched and read. Is they were talking about the map, and they were like,
that?
You'll fly into a random mountaintop crevice where you would think you would see nothing but like glitchy little polygon of a mountain, and there's something there for you. That's crazy that it's like that.
That's wild. They say it's the biggest world that's not procedurally generated in video games. But I think we were slightly off about, unless I'm wrong, there's an article here that says that Breath of the Wild is actually bigger than we thought, but it's not as big as this. It said 140 square miles. So I don't know if that one's referring to another one or if this is wrong. I'm not sure. But either way, this is still bigger than that, which is
yeah. Breath of the Wild is like probably the biggest map in any video game I've ever played. That's not like a Forza Horizon or something or GTA. Like,
crazy, man.
Side real quick, Forza Horizon was almost in my list, guys, but I had to pull it out.
I love it though.
It was a hard list, I'll say that. I think.
So what are you doing about 5? That's you don't have an
bro.
Xbox.
I watched the graphic. I watched
what, like
the
2
video
months?
that they did where it was like 15 minutes of gameplay. Yeah. Oh my god!
It looks
I can't
way
believe
better
this
than
is
4.
real life. I just can't believe that we're at this point to where we're watching like essentially just live TV racing where you're controlling the driver on the screen. I mean, it's. I don't think Gran Turismo is going to be able to match that. I just don't see how. Gran Turismo's always been like that Project Cars.
Horizon's actually scanning the environment.
Dude,
with, like, cameras,
exactly. Horizon is exactly the name. It's everything. Where when you go to Gran Turismo, you know you're going to be playing a game that's going to end up, I don't know, like Project Cars. Like you're doing simulation racing on some tracks that are like well known around the world. And mind you, they're going to look damn good. But when you can have the entire, like a huge section of Mexico where it's like literally scanned off of maps, I don't know how Sony's going to top that. I think Forza has
on your list. You seem to be really into it.
Dude, Forza has taken over the racing. Like they've taken over racing games. I don't care what Gran Turismo does. It's never going to touch that. Forza Horizon is where it's at. But anyways, back to where we're at.
But Xenoblade, you don't get your mech until about 30 hours
I was
into the
waiting
game.
for it and never got it. Yep.
Yeah, you get it pretty late. But the game is that long to where like you still get another 20, 30 hours with the mech. But I'm saying that to say when you're traversing just how huge this land is and you're on foot, like, okay, you'd be one thing if you're flying and you can find a bunch of stuff because you're flying and it takes really fast to get there. When you're on foot, there's still really prominent stuff every, like you're running for like a minute or two, you find something super special. And they're in really weird, hard to get places that you have to really do, not quite Breath of the Wild, big puzzle things, but they are not just like easy to obtain. You have to really, what they do to add the hard level of getting something is there will be a very big monster traversing the area. And if you were to touch that thing, or if you were to get too close, it would attack and kill you in one hit.
Thank God for Zelda games, dude. I'm just sitting here thinking, growing up, was there ever a game that implemented puzzles like Zelda did? It's literally changed my entire way I play every video game where I look for puzzles. And it's such a great, it's so good if you played it growing up because it's literally implemented in your brain now to like every room you're in any video game, you're looking for a puzzle to break.
It's awesome, man.
Dude, sorry, going back to Breath of the Wild, one of my favorite ones was when you're chaining the electricity.
Oh, yeah.
Like one of the shrines so you can get something to activate. They're not expecting you to use a weapon. You're supposed to use these boxes and stuff like that. But I didn't want to go pull this box from halfway across the room. So I just throw a weapon down and then chain it that way. Actually, sometimes I would take like 4 weapons.
There were so many ways to rig one of the shrines to do different ways. Like not even close to the way you're supposed to do it. But you could make it work with your own unique way. And I think that's so nice that you're able to do your own thing and still succeed in something that wasn't even meant to be done that way.
Awesome, man.
So why Xenoblade Chronicles is ahead of Breath of the Wild is it's just as good of like a huge world to explore with tons of reward, right? But Xenoblade actually has a crazy good story behind it. Like how you were saying with Witcher, once you're like 20, 30 hours in all the way, I want to say it's like maybe 70 hours long. You're dying to know what's going to happen next. You're up to like 2 or 3 in the morning. You're not wanting to quit. You're not wanting to go to bed because all you are is going to be thinking about the whole next day.
That makes such good sense because like most Zelda games, we all know the story. Beat Ganondorf, game's over.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
but
we're
it's
playing
like
because it's fun.
yeah, we're playing
but
for the world that we all know and love. Like when you're in a whole new world of the story.
Stuff keeps revealing for me of stuff where I can't say anything or spoil anything, but there's so many moments with so many characters that you're super close with where things go crazy haywire, and then you're spending 10 hours down this big rabbit hole and trying to solve the issue with one of the missions involving this important person. And there's so much of that throughout the game, and that's why it's so much like closer to my heart, because I'm so close to the characters in the game, along with it being such a huge crazy big world to explore. And who doesn't like flying around in a big mech with machine guns and rocket launchers and destroying
that sounds
huge
awesome.
monsters?
Heck yeah.
Like,
I need to get back to that one. Just please announce that Switch port, or I'm just going to have to take you up on what you told me about playing it on PC at this point. So,
dude, you have a way better PC than I do, and I'm running it no problem.
Yeah,
I mean, I think
yeah.
you just need to go ahead and do it, because I don't know.
Awesome.
All right, that's my number 2.
For me, this was a tough choice. I almost put this at number 1, but it is number 2, which is Bloodborne. So could have easily put a lot of these types of games, Souls-like games from software games in number 2 spot. But something about Bloodborne, the only flaw that Bloodborne has, in my opinion, is, well, it had 2 flaws. Number 1 was when the game first came out, the loading times were atrocious, and it doesn't help that it's a game where you die a lot. So you would sit there and just stare at a screen that said Bloodborne. It was really bad at first. Like, you would sit there and stare at a screen that said Bloodborne with a black background. Not even like little info facts, nothing. And then
it loads, you play for 5 seconds, die.
It mocks you. It's like you did this boss fight, you lost. Let's say you lost in a bad way. You really screwed up. Okay. Then the screen turns black and you see your own reflection in the TV. You're like, I'm a failure. It just sucked. But they've since patched that out and they fixed that. Okay, load times are fine now. The only other flaw, and I'm starting with the flaws because I have so many good things to say about this game. The only other flaw the game has, in my opinion, is something that a lot of people won't care about, but I personally do, is it runs at 30 FPS, even a little lower than that sometimes on PS4. Why this game has not gotten the treatment that so many of these other games have gotten, where they give it the 60 boost or 120 boost, I have no clue, because people want it. But now that I've put those 2 things aside, man, this game is something else.
So hold on, I tried playing it.
Right.
Because I just started getting into them. I beat Dark Souls 3.
Okay.
And I finally get it. I'm like, ooh, it's clicking. I'm really liking this.
Right.
I don't like these games at all. I'm just now starting as of last year.
Sure.
So I beat that. I played some of Bloodborne, and I was like, man, this world is so cool, but I cannot do the 30. Honestly, I don't know what it is. I think
I'm the same way.
so used. It actually feels like broken or something.
Yeah, and a game like that is just, it's so hard for me to play whenever the FPS.
I have to time my attacks, and the enemies, you're watching animation like super close. Like Zelda's one thing, but this game is like these enemies are attacking super fast, super crazy ways. It's so hard to like judge what's going on, and then I'm running at like half my speed or something.
Yeah,
super choppy.
It's not something that's a deal breaker for me. Normally it would be, because I can't stand 30 FPS, but to me the game is so good that I can look past it. But yes, that's the one fatal flaw.
I get used to it. That's the thing. If I was playing it back when it came out, we're all playing 30 FPS games, and it wasn't messing with us. But yeah. Now it's messing with us hard.
That is one gripe I have with the game for sure. But that being said, the game is, man, it just does so many things so well. The environments reminds me of like a sort of, think of like if Castlevania was a 3D game done really well. That's what this game would be. It's like this gothic setting. I'm sure you guys have seen it. It's awesome. It's like eerie. And then you start getting into like some Lovecraftian influences. And then, like I said, you start getting into some Lovecraftian stuff, some cosmic stuff going on. There's a lot of cool stuff going on in the setting. But put all that aside, even the combat in the game is just, it feels so great. I know a lot of people, this is how it always goes. They are not a fan of like the Souls-like games. Maybe they try it, they push through, then it starts to click, and then they fall in love with them, right? For me, that's what happened way back with Dark Souls 1. When this game came out, I was just amazed at how good it feels. Like, Dark Souls usually is, here's 100 different weapons you can choose from, right? This game is a little tighter.
Dark Souls is very like slow and sluggish. 3's a little fast,
right?
But
Bloodborne
is super fast.
Bloodborne is all about being on the offensive, right? You have the ability where when you lose health, if you strike back quick enough, you get it back, right? So they encourage, and there's no shields.
It plays like Doom Eternal, where if you don't play aggressive, you're gonna die.
Right.
You need to kill them so you can get health back.
Exactly. And there's no shield, so it's not a weight game. It's not defensive. It's in their face. You have your gun.
I love games that give killing your enemies.
Yeah, it's great.
And life steal is one of my favorite mechanics ever. If there's like a character that has life steal, I'm picking it every time.
Oh yeah, definitely. But the thing that I love about this game and the other Souls games is you have that stuff going on, right? But that you think of like some similar games where you're aggressive, like Devil May Cry or something, right? But the difference is in this game, you are on even footing with the AI and the enemies. The same way that you are this strong player and you go through and you kill this enemy in 5 hits, well, they can kill you in 5 hits too. That's what I love about it. It's like you really have to be careful. You really have to think about what you're doing. But once you get to a certain point, you start getting skilled at it. You start learning how to parry and you start learning how to dodge right and you start getting more confident. Then the game becomes way more fun. I loved it from the beginning, but of course, we all know these games will frustrate you for sure. Once you get over that hump, you learn how to play the games. They're not really that hard of games, honestly. It's really more about just learning the game and playing it.
I agree. I was scared, and that's what Jake needs to realize is like he hasn't gotten into them at all,
right?
And me either. But I realized what the problem was. I was scared.
Yeah.
Like, it's almost like playing Resident Evil 2.
Right.
And then when you're actually like feel confident and you go through an area again, you're like, oh, I do it no problem because I've been through the area before.
Exactly.
If you could just it's like Resident Evil 7 more specifically. If you ever played 7, did you play 7 or beat it? 7 terrified me, but once I finally got over the fear,
I can't
easy.
get over the fear.
Well, okay, so first of all, you're not the only one I've heard say that.
That's how these games are. It really is.
I can't do it. I refuse.
I think it was just finding a weapon I like.
That's what I love about it. You have so many choices with what kind of weapon you want. Do you want to be someone who uses the gun and parries a lot? Do you want to just be someone who evades a lot and strikes when you can? But once you get over all of that, the game really starts to click and the game will take you to some crazy places. The enemy design in this game and the environment, the way that they do the shortcuts is awesome. Anytime I hear someone complain about these games and they say something like, well, I just hate doing the same thing over and over and over. It's such a waste of time. That shows me that they haven't really put a lot of time into it, because play it for a little while, you'll realize quickly. You get to this area, you die. Okay. Maybe you get a little further, you do a little more work, you get better. Finally, you get to the end of this area. You have no health left, you have no vials left to heal. You're struggling. What am I going to do? And then you turn to your left and you see this door that if you go through, it circles right back to the area where you started. So there's your shortcut.
Yeah, so now when you die, you just walk through that door and you're right where you were.
Those moments are so great. They feel so good and they feel super rewarding. But that pales in comparison to when you beat a tough boss that you know every single move at this point, what they're doing. Okay, dodge here, swing here. You always know why you died. To me, it's just it's such a great game, man. I just love it. And of course, just like everyone else in the world, I've been waiting for them to either announce some sort of port for PC or PS5 or Bloodborne 2. At this point, I'm starting to lose faith. I don't know if it's ever going to happen.
How I feel with Splinter Cell currently. Can they just announce a new one?
I feel bad. I feel bad for you.
They're so actually mean with it now. They're actually showing him in these like free to play
like it's like the new Ghost Recon that nobody gives a shit about. Like, oh, here's Sam Fisher.
It was X Defiance.
X Defiance.
Why are you trolling me? They're doing. Netflix is doing an animated Splinter Cell show, so I'm 1% hopeful that it's going to be good. Castlevania was really well done. I'll give them that. So I'm hoping that they do the same with Splinter Cell.
Dude,
but
it's like the same thing. God, it's like the same way you feel about Splinter Cell. I'm the same here.
Hold on. Rudy's in season 3 of Castlevania, by the way, and he just
wrapped up. I just wrapped up season 2 and I loved it. So I'm going to start season 3.
Dude, it's so good.
Oh my God. Anyway, to finish what I was saying, like I have gotten to the point where I've had too many times where I see the newest article, Bloodborne 2 rumored, or Bloodborne PC port rumored. At this point,
driving you crazy.
This is a game more so than any other game I can think of that would benefit from an FPS boost greatly. Like it would be the difference between maybe someone will play this and maybe someone won't.
I mean, it is the reason why I can't play it. Because then I started playing Sekiro instead, and I'm like, man, this is amazing.
Love that game.
Y'all, like fast it is, and then I go back to Bloodborne, and it runs at half speed. I don't. It's
Dude, the last thing I'll say about Bloodborne is, last two things real quick is number one, if you're someone like you were describing for Jake, maybe he's like doesn't want to take that initial dive into it. I would play that with you because it's co-op. I would jump into it with you, and I guarantee that you would have way more fun.
That would be cool.
Yeah,
because you wouldn't be scared. You can easily handle the beginning area, no problem.
Totally.
Because I played like, I want to say 6-7 hours of it. And I know like when I first played Bloodborne, that little beginning area, I was having a
It's
hard
tough.
time with the dogs and
Yeah.
stuff.
Yep.
Dude, now it's so easy whenever I was able to wipe the dogs, no problem.
Yep.
And then so I'm sitting there thinking like, yeah, if I was to play with someone else playing new, I could easily handle these sections, no problem. That way he can just...
Might have to do that. Might have to set that up because I think it would be really good. And the thing I like about Bloodborne is you can sit here and you can level up for 2 hours if you want. It might help you a little bit, but really it's going to come down to you learning the pattern.
It comes down to your skill. It doesn't come down to you grinding.
But yeah, man, great game. Definitely looking forward to playing that again whenever we get a port or a new one. So yeah, man, that's it. Number 2.
Jake, you're number 1.
And now that I've heard everybody's list so far, I know for a fact that this is not going to be Tim's number 1 because I know what he's putting there.
Okay.
I'm not sure what you're putting, Rudy, but my number 1 is definitely God of War.
Oh, great game, man.
Oh my God, bro. This game.
So Jake saw my list, had a list in the very beginning, like, I don't know, 2 or 3 days ago, and God of War was up in there. And so that's why he was saying that. But I've been saying it for a long time. God of War is like one of the best games I've played in a super long time. But anyway.
It's from the cinematics to the story to the way everything plays. It is such a good game. I mean, from start, I'm just experiencing everything like on PS5, of course, and the graphics are insane. I'll take that away first. Then the story, the opening scene of the game where you're fighting with the other god, that has to be one of those, like we were talking about with The Witcher and Breath of the Wild, how when you play Breath of the Wild, you're like, oh my God, from the very beginning, whereas The Witcher is more slower. God of War takes it to a level beyond that where it's like you're about to get marked on something insane. So I hope you're ready. And that was the very first feeling I got from the second I started the game. Every time I played the game, I never was bored. There was never a part of the game where I turned it off because I was like, I don't feel like doing this. I would turn it on, super hyped. I stopped at that point. Like, yes, I gotta finish this.
It may have the best pacing out of any game this gen.
I agree. There was never one single part of the game where I was like, man, I don't want to do this. It always stopped at a part where I was like, God, I could do a little more, but I have to go to bed so I can get up for work. That was the only time I would ever turn the game off. It's one of those games where after you finish it, you're watching scenes at work, like, or something on YouTube where you're like, this is such a good part of the game. Like, showing your friends, like, you need to get on this game. It's unbelievable. Pretty sure we could all speak about different parts of why we love this game. But for me alone, the cinematics, just with the gameplay, the action in it, like, you just feel so more badass than everybody else.
Yep.
You didn't say the most important part. The most important part of this game is they did what no one ever done before. It's all shot in one shot. The whole game.
Amazing stuff, man.
Very good point.
Another thing that has happened very, very rarely in video games is they took a character that I love the old God of Wars, but they took a character that people didn't really care for. I kind of thought Kratos was always a jerk. He wasn't a really good character to me at all. And then now they made me actually care. Like, wow, this is actually
God of War has shown me what potential we could see if there was ever an adult Link in a Zelda game.
Yeah.
You could see something like that, obviously not as mature.
No, he could be as broken because think about it. There's time travel and all that. Yep. Like, there's all those connections that he had whenever he was a kid, like with Sarah or whatever in the Force and all that. And just instead of it going good, it ended up being the bad future. And then you're playing God of War like game and you're this adult Link and really broken and everybody's dead and it's dark world stuff. You could totally do that.
That game as a parent, it really kind of resonated with me. His relationship with his son. I was really feeling that. And when it came, it all culminated in the end and the credits start and you're still scaling the mountain, you're going back down the mountain with your son. I was like, this is awesome, man. I really vibed.
Yeah, I played it soon after having my kid. Like, it came out 2018. I think my kid was like 3 or 4 at the time.
Right.
The whole time I'm playing with the whole kid thing, I can't help but feel that connection way stronger than I normally would.
So cool, man. Great game. Great choice.
Tim, let's hear it.
Okay. Tim, go for it. I don't know what this is. It seems like Jake knows already. I really have no idea.
He knows. But it's Metal Gear Solid 5.
Oh, duh. I forgot how much you like this game.
Whoa, that is not what I thought. I was
Oh,
so
wow.
thinking the Final Fantasy VII remake. Oh my
Oh,
God,
that
what a
too.
plot twist this is about to be.
That was in my 5 when you saw the list. Okay. I didn't realize that.
I just know you, and I know Seven's your favorite game of all time. So I'm just thinking, like, how is that not in there?
It's not even in my 5, yeah. Because that's the problem. It's like, okay, well, it's not better than Breath of the Wild. And then it's like Final Fantasy 14. That was my big battle, was 14 and 7 remake.
Right.
The problem with 7 remake is it's only the beginning of Final Fantasy 7.
That's a fair point.
Technically, it's only like the first 10 hours of the game. They just stretched out to 30 or 40. I loved it. If we had all parts right now, yes, it'd be a whole different story. But I can't put it above Final Fantasy 14 when I put 500 hours into this game and I'm doing that Stardoo Valley thing of like spending hours mining or farming or working on my house and all of that stuff alongside a super epic Final Fantasy story. And honestly, by the end of Final Fantasy 14, where I'm at in the story, way more epic things took place in that online game than it did in Final Fantasy 7 Remake. Because technically, again, it's still just that first like 10 hours of Final Fantasy 7, which is super strong. The fact that they turned it into like a 30, 40 hour game where we're to pull material out of that into that short of just the snippet proves of how good Final Fantasy 7 story actually is. Any other game, I don't know. Like, okay, a game's like 40, 50 hours long. You put the first 10 hours and you make a full game out of it. That's so crazy. I love Final Fantasy 7 Remake. I mean, but it's just, I had to put Metal Gear Solid 5 in. And I was sitting there thinking, even with that, is honestly, Metal Gear Solid 5, I put way more time into that and I had way more fun with that. Final Fantasy 7 Remake is an amazing story and the combat is great. Oh, it's super fun. Yeah. But a lot of that game, there are a lot of flaws with it. There's a lot of segments to where there'll be 3-4 hours of you just doing side quest bullcrap that's not important at all or not even fun. Go find these 10 kids or go find this person's cats or go. It's just so dumb of stuff I don't want to be doing. And if they would have just cut that all out and just had it be 25 hours, it would have been technically been a better game. But I can't. So I don't know. I just can't put it over Metal Gear Solid 5.
Fair enough.
And Metal Gear Solid 5, I remember seeing people pumped about getting the dog to be like your partner in the game
and quiet.
That's what I think
super cool. I think of that game, it's like it's very in depth, and that's a game that Tim, my brother Matt, like he played that game and he thought it was hype, and he doesn't get into single player games like that. So for him to be involved in a game like that, I know it has to be like up there in like top 10.
And I was actually disappointed with 5 in the beginning because, okay, it has a really strong start and it's like other Metal Gears where it's literally like 2 or 3 hours of a ton of cutscenes and crazy stuff, right? But then once you leave out of that and actually like go into the first area that you start exploring in Afghanistan, next thing you know, you got 10 hours before you even see any story at all. There's not much story in Metal Gear Solid 5 at all. In total, there's maybe 8 hours compared to like the 90 of the rest to where there's any story. A lot of people didn't like it because of that. And even me, Metal Gear Solid 4, one of my favorite games ever. It's between that and Final Fantasy 7. But all Metal Gears have a lot of story and a lot of cutscenes, and this was completely separate from that. This barely had any, and it was nothing but just gameplay. The gameplay that was there couldn't be any more fun. It just gave you so many crazy tools. It's like, think playing like Just Cause, but it actually being a good game and not boring. But
when we talked about Breath of the Wild, how you could climb anything, that was the game I thought of, Just Cause 3. I was like, man, I remember playing that game where I could pretty much go anywhere I wanted on the map.
So I was thinking Just Cause 3, you know how you're like gliding in and shooting rockets at buildings, everything exploding and all of this? That's what you're doing in Metal Gear Solid 5. Like it's a huge map, but you have crazy, I mean, you're taking out tanks, you're taking out, and there'll be a village of like 100 enemies and you're taking them all out.
I remember that Death Battle did like a Sam Fisher versus Solid Snake. And don't get me wrong, I love Sam Fisher and Splinter Cell, but it's such a bad comparison. Like Solid Snake is so
it is. He has way
him.
more.
Awesome.
It's like Batman with all his tools,
Dude,
and then you're trying to get.
It's like Death Battle when they did the Cloud versus Link, and somehow Link beat Cloud. It's like I love The Legend of Zelda
But there's no
Cloud has like
way
materia with
Cloud
like
loses
lightning
the
and
Link.
fire and
Like
can
that,
heal himself.
that
Like
equation
what?
is literally like Superman versus Captain America, which I'm a huge Captain America fan, but Superman would literally not be hurt by a single thing he did. And that's how I feel with Link versus Cloud. Like Link's awesome and he has some cool weapons and whatnot. But Cloud's got like magic. He can heal on the spot. Like he can summon a literal demon to attack you.
Yeah.
Like it's not comparable.
So Metal Gear Solid is very like next level like that. So you'll have like, okay, Quiet is her name, and she's like this sniper that you can have go along with you. So she can go on the top of a mountain, you scope them out. You're like, oh, there's a guy there. You mark them. The sniper takes him out kind of thing. But you have to be aware of like noises. You have to be aware of like, obviously if there's a dude next to him, you snipe him out and the dude next to him sees it, shoots off the alarm. You're pretty much done for. So you still have to, there's a lot you have to worry about. There's so many tools, like the dog, a dog, they don't know that there's a human around just because there's a dog. So that's what makes the dog so useful is the dog can go up in there and find items for you or kill a guy. They just think it's a wild dog. They don't know it has any connection to you.
Right.
So you get a lot of things out of that. You have this robot that you get in the game that you played a little bit. Remember Metal Gear Solid? We're playing online and you like can get up in the...
Is Metal Gear Solid 5, is it available for PS5?
5? Yeah, I think it is, right?
I mean, it's PS4. You can play it on PS5. And
I need to play through
edition.
it. I know it's an amazing game. I need to get into it.
It's just like Just Cause, right? Could be good if there was more meaning to it, and that's the thing.
Yeah. Every time I play it, it's literally like one of those meaningless games that I just hop on to explore the world, and that's it. I care nothing for anything else.
The fact that you care a ton and you actually have to be really strategic, or Just Cause you don't have to be strategic at all. You can just blow crap up, whatever. This game, like, there is no way you're going into an area and just doing whatever you want. You're going to be dead in a heartbeat. Like, you're still just a normal
Yeah, that's
human
how I
being.
feel playing like Splinter Cell, but this is such a more in-depth version of Splinter Cell. Like, every time I think of Metal Gear Solid, I think of Splinter Cell, and then I add in a ton of other, like, different scenarios.
Yeah, so think Splinter Cell, but then like 8 ghost people come and try to kill you.
Right? I loved infiltrating the bases in that game, and you'd get so creative. Like, remember the Fulton things where you would put the bag on the guy and you would shoot them up to the sky? I love that. That was so cool.
Okay, so Jake, so as you're playing, okay, you're going and taking out these guys. 90% of the time, you don't want to kill them, not just because you make it alert or whatever. You actually want to recruit them for your own army. So in the game, you're building up an army and you're sending back to your base. You're recruiting them to join your side because you're trying to build this huge army so you can take down this big enemy, right? And you need as many people as possible. So they're far away. You're like looking at binoculars or something like that, and they'll tell you their rank and a bunch of information about them. And then, oh, this is an A-rank person. I want them on my side. So let me kill everybody else around him, but have to be secretive. But he also can't run away. He also can't alert more people. And then, okay, I get rid of everyone else. It's just him. He's not aware of anything. Now I'm going to Fulton him up is what it's called. And basically it just like attaches this parachute thingy that shoots them straight up in the air so high up. And then they just get teleported to your base. So it's super like Japanese anime crazy, unrealistic thing. But they make they're like, whoa!
Yeah, it felt so good going into a base and doing it to everyone on the base. Just slowly but surely, all their buddies are flying off the sky. You gotta
pick them out without other people seeing them, and they scream. So as they're screaming and flying up, and if they're near someone else, other person's gonna hear the scream. So either you shoot them up just as fast, or kill them, or whatever you need to do. But you are trying to get as many people as possible, and you are trying to get good people on top of that. So there'll be situations to where like there's people in these tanks that are huge high rank, and it's so hard to get them out of the tank without destroying the tank and stuff like that.
I can't believe that Metal Gear Solid 5 came out a good bit ago.
Yeah.
And it's number 1 on your list. It just shows me what a peak of gaming we're at right now, where there's so many games that I have yet to fully experience that are that good.
It's a pretty cool feeling. Yeah, it's an awesome game, man. Very cool.
The thing is so I said there's not much story. and there's not. But the story that is there couldn't hit harder.
Oh, it's pretty
And it
crazy
is
stuff.
I don't want to spoil it at all, but what I can say is it links back to the original Metal Gear that was on NES.
Like MSX or whatever that system was. Like it went way back. It's so cool. I don't know.
It
I feel
brought the whole series all the way around again, and now it all makes sense because there was all these holes in all these games, and it basically filled every little hole, and now it all makes sense because of 5.
It's so cool, man. I really loved finishing that game. I know there's a lot of complaints that people say about they feel that the game, because the falling out with Kojima and Konami, that the game wasn't truly finished, which I can see that. I can see that there was more that needed to be.
There was a special ending scene, basically, like that they were working on, but he had a lot of problems with the company, and then he just left and never got to finish his little final moment. But technically, all it is would just be one cutscene at the end, so you make sense of this one character. There's enough information now that people have figured out that we know what it's going on anyway, so we don't even need the cutscene. It's not a big deal.
Good choice.
The twist at the end, right? It couldn't be any crazier and couldn't blow your mind anymore. And even if you never played any of the other Metal Gears, you're still going to know, and you're still going to be a complete mind fuck at the end.
Oh yeah. That is true. Actually, now that I think about it, yeah, you don't need to have played the others for that to hit you kind of the way it does.
Oh, and disease can spread with the people, so you have a bunch of people up in the army, and then next thing you know, there's this moment in the game where someone catches this disease and they start spreading it, and you have to figure out who the spreader is because they keep spreading to other people.
Great, I get to be fucking Trump and Biden. And if it spreads, it's all my fault no matter what. So that sounds like a freaking awesome time.
That's awesome, man.
You're building your base up a ton too. And here's another cool part. And it's still all functional right now. So you're building up your base with all these people. And you can even have bears on your base and all this crazy stuff. These drones that can shoot like machine guns out of them. But what they do is, so you're building this base up, they have this online mode to where you can go and infiltrate someone else's base that they've been working on their whole game and take stuff from them, and other people can do the same to you. You don't even have to be playing. Your base is there as long as you put it up like, hey, I'm allowing people to infiltrate my base, because you get rewards. Let's say they fail, you get stuff from them even though you're not even playing. So you'll just leave it up, and as long as you have a good enough base, you'll be bringing in materials from other players trying to wreck your base.
It's a pretty cool game, man. I mean, even you mentioning things like this, it makes me think again of Death Stranding, another game he made. Like a lot of these little behind the scenes things that he didn't need to put in it that he does because he really cares about it. It's pretty cool stuff, man. So
it was hard to decide between the two games, and that's why I was saying I didn't know if I want Death Stranding 1 or whatever, because Death Stranding has such... The story hits so hard at the end, I can never get it out of my head. And it's one of those games where you think about, it's like Detroit Become Human. I was thinking about that game for weeks.
Oh man, what a
once
game.
I finished it.
Death
Stranding did that same thing where like I couldn't get it out of my head. Then I remembered Metal Gear Solid 5 had an even more epic ending.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that crap for months, and I was looking up forums and I was watching videos trying to explain it all, and I couldn't be any more of like, oh my God, this is the craziest thing ever. And no one knows. I don't know. Any of my friends that I knew never got into this game, and I couldn't talk about what happened at the end or like, and so, because I don't want to spoil anything because it's so impactful. So it's really annoying, like having to hold in like one of the greatest experiences.
Nice choice. All right. So I will preface this by saying it's funny to me that games like Metal Gear Solid 5 and God of War, both amazing games that I really loved a lot. And if I did this list again 6 months from now, maybe they'd be in it. But please know I love those games, but they are not my number one. So for some reason,
hold on. So Metal Gear Solid 5, though, it could be in there. Like, you do really like that game a lot?
I do really like it a lot, yes. But you know what I was saying before? It's like these lists, you know, you make the list, you really try to think about it.
It came out a long time ago. It came out 2015.
Right.
It's 2021 now. It's hard to even remember.
Right. I guess the point I'm trying to make is, like, just because it's not on my list doesn't mean it's not a game that I thought definitely deserved to be on it. Anyway.
Okay.
All right, so
let's hear this.
My number one game, which not only, I know I said this about Bloodborne and Hollow Knight, pretty much every game on this list, but this one, I feel even more strongly about it than any of those. That I think it's one of the greatest games ever made. I think it's one of the greatest stories ever made. I think the philosophy in this game is unparalleled, and that is Nier Automata, which is, my God, this game.
Oh, wow.
Wowzers.
This game is, where do I even start? I mean, okay.
No, I wanted it in my 5 as well. It would be in my 10.
God, dude,
it got me so emotional.
Oh, yeah.
It's so good at making you care about humanity. And
Yeah.
like you start
Yeah.
questioning
The game, like,
what
changed.
even makes the world tick.
Dude, the fact that a video game can, I've played many video games in my lifetime that made you feel something, but the fact that a game can make you rethink things in your life and view life from a different, perspective, it blew my mind. I should
Wow,
just
it really
I should
does that to you?
I mean that was
Yes.
my takeaway
It
with
hit
this
me
game.
so hard.
So it's
I was
like,
messaging a friend of
how
mine
much
when I
more than
finished.
Detroit Become Human does this hit you in the personal fields?
To me,
More,
it's way
more.
more. And let me at least give you a little
Wow.
background, right? So this
It
game,
is more.
this
It is
game, it's a very, first of all, let's talk about just the way it plays. It's a very well made game. It kind of reminds me like Devil May Cry, Bayonetta, those types of games with the combat, right? Combat's pretty solid. It feels pretty good.
So
Whatever,
it
that's
feels like
fine.
it's like a beat 'em up in combat.
Yeah, it's like a fast paced, you fight
I
as you.
think Bayonetta is the
Yeah,
best.
yeah.
Bayonetta's a good
Yeah,
comparison,
I've
right?
played it. I've
But
played it.
the difference is that the combat is there just because it needs to be there. It's pretty good, but that's not what people love about this game, right? First of all, the game hits about 6 different genres of video games in one game, all in one, and they constantly switch between them. And when you first start the game, it's like a top-down, like twin stick shooter. Then as you land and you progress the story, like 20 minutes later, now it's like a third-person action game. Then you play a little further.
Whoa.
Then it's like that game Death's Door, Tim, that you were mentioning. It kind of has that viewpoint.
Yeah.
You're viewing it like an isometric
Exactly.
game. Then it's first person. Then it's a
And
visual
then you're
novel.
hacking something, and
Dude,
it's like a little
it's
game inside of a hacking thing.
I mean, the way that they navigate all these different genres in one game is really impressive, right? So again, that's another.
hold on, one more
Go
thing
ahead.
too. You know what? It's a lot of like so. Mega Man Battle Network. You know when you're like in the overworld running around,
Yeah,
then you
yeah,
hack
yeah,
into something,
yeah.
and then you
Yes.
actually go inside of it,
Yes,
and then
yep.
you're playing the game inside. That's what Nier does.
Oh my
You actually
God,
go
it's-
inside of objects, and you get to see like the internet version of it.
So you get the little.
God, I want a new Mega Man Battle Network.
Whenever you do hack, oh yeah, good game. Whenever you hack something, you go into this little, like he said, you go into the machine that you're hacking, and you play this little mini game. But as you go further, it gets harder. It
It's
gets
not
more
a mini
involved.
game though.
Yeah,
it's like think about it though. You
yeah.
actually are running around in it. Like
You are.
yourself
You're
are
right.
inside of it, running around a big world. Don't think mini game. Like it will add mini games into it.
Right.
Sometimes you're going in it and you're in it for like an hour, and it's
I
a
get
whole
what you're
big
saying.
city.
well,
It
you're-
sounds really good.
You understand what I'm
Check it
saying?
out.
Yeah,
like,
I get what you're saying, but I'm talking about specifically in those moments when you
the gameplay moments.
the gameplay moments when you have the hacking and stuff, right? But besides that, right? The thing that I think this game really does extremely well is that the game is based on not specifically humanity, but humanity plays a big part in it. You're playing as an AI, right? As these androids that were created because humans, have lost this war to the machine.
It does the Detroit Become Human thing where you like start really questioning like, is it human? Is it android? Should I care? Should I not?
The thing that the game does so expertly is you play the game through the first time, right? And people say you have to play the game multiple times. I don't really think that's accurate. I think more it's a game that it's
one
split
long
between
game.
chapters.
I don't agree with him.
Right, exactly. So the game
people are like, oh, you got to play it 5 different times, and it's game A, game B, game C, game D. It's not.
It's definitely not that. It's more like you're playing route A, route B, route C, route D, right? So just to give you an idea, you play route A, you play as one specific character. It might take you anywhere from let's say 15 to 20 hours, maybe. You could push it a little further if you're doing side quests, maybe even a little less, right? Okay, fine. But then once you finish and you roll the credits, you've had a pretty decent story told to you. On its own, a decent story, well done, whatever, right? But they tell you, and they're very clear. They're like, you have not experienced the whole story. You need to keep going. And they're like, okay, well, I'm going to keep going then. And I don't know why some of these reviewers stopped there and they reviewed the game, which is just a joke to me. But anyway, you play part 2, and all of a sudden you're playing as a new character, right? You're playing from a different.
But as you're saying with the routes, route A, route B,
right?
Maybe you only have that choice in the beginning. But why the routes matter is because you could do C instead of D or whatever.
Right. So yep, that's true. A and B are kind of, you have to do them in a certain order. You have a little more flexibility later. But the point is, you play B, you play from a different perspective. They add a lot of cool background there. It's mostly the same game, but there's a lot of enough.
So
background
B, you're playing as the person that was with you the whole time. You're seeing
Exactly.
from their perspective.
Yep.
And then there's moments in the game where they separated. Tries to joke a lot.
Right,
He cares a
right.
lot. He's always asking her questions. You can tell he kind of likes her.
Right. And he's the hacker, right? So he knows what's going on with these machines, what they're thinking. But anyway, I'm not going to tell you every story beat, but the point is you play through the first two routes. Then when you get to C, you play as another character that I won't even mention, right? Another character, you see another perspective, except this time around it's way different. Then stuff starts to get real crazy. Like when you get to D, you're making decisions that impact everything, and you see a certain outcome. Then you go back and you do it again from that specific part. You get another outcome. Then you do E, and E is the final culmination of everything. And dude, I'll tell you, I finished E one night at like 3 a.m, and I just couldn't. I couldn't even go to sleep. I couldn't function. I was just like, my mind was blown. There were so many emotional things that happened. I wish I could spoil what happens at the end, but of course I'm not.
I was blasting somebody with text, and then they finally started responding because it was a friend of mine that actually beat it or whatever, and I kept going back and forth. Dude, we talked about it for like 2 hours that night, and I couldn't go to sleep.
We'll have to talk about it because I have spent hours and hours just seeing what other people think about this and that, and the game made me start digging into like philosophy and what people think. Like I've read books now since this game came out because there's so much philosophy baked into these characters, and they're quoting real philosophers and they're sharing their ideas. Some of them are even named after philosophers, and there's a lot of nods to philosophy in that. But man, by the time you finish that game, you're going to be thinking about machines, humans, what our purpose is on Earth. Have you lived a fulfilling life? Like this game was really, really getting me, man. And on top of all that, it's a solid game to play. So
it goes into like racism, sexism.
Oh my God, everything. And it's not on the nose though. They really do it. And here's the thing, Jake, if you were to look this
they
game
never
up,
once even bring up race in the game.
They don't. Yep.
Yet you know exactly what they're talking about.
You know exactly what they're talking about because you start to identify with it. But Jake, if you look this game up, when this game was first coming out, I thought, okay, you see this girl wearing not a lot of clothes, some typical, anime character, some sexy character fighting these with a sword and everything. You think, oh, it's gonna be a typical thing, but man, we were so wrong about it. And I'm sure they did that on purpose, obviously, to throw people off. But yeah, man, it's something else. That game, definitely my favorite game in a long, long time. So please,
that's really cool. You put it as your number one. I mean, I can't hate. I love that game.
Yeah.
If it's your number one, I'm gonna go ahead and say it's a really good game.
Oh yeah, dude. And the other thing is, I was not a Nier fan before this. I didn't really even play Nier at all. And it's weird how it started. There was a series called Drakengard. There was a trilogy of those games. Then the third game in that series had one specific ending, like we mentioned in Nier, and that specific ending became canon. And then they made Nier Replicant, which was a game that came out years and years ago. And then this game takes place thousands of years after Replicant, and that's how we got Automata. So it's a little complicated storyline, but it all makes sense. And you can go back and play. They re-released.
I never played another game in the series. It doesn't matter. Like everything's told to you in this.
I played Automata first, and then I went back and played the Nier Replicant remaster that released earlier this year, and it was amazing.
Oh, you did play it?
I did, and I would suggest you play it too if you liked Automata. It connects to it beautifully.
I just heard a lot of people say that it's a lot like rougher than
it. Here's the thing: if you sit there and you try to do all the side quests, you're really gonna start to feel it because a lot of them are meaningless. But if you just do the storyline, the main storyline, it's great. And the way it connects to Automata, even though it's thousands of years beforehand, it's just awesome, man. It's another game.
Well, see, that's the thing. This game makes you realize that time doesn't even matter.
Yeah,
I don't know how to word that.
Yep.
But like, you don't even know if you're human or android in the end.
Right. Yeah, it's God, man. Just talking about the game, makes me want to play it again, and it's incredible, man. It's a really great game. So
it talks about like the origins of life and the origins of Earth. And
it's just so smart. I can't believe that this is even in a video game. I would have nights playing that game. It's 2:00 in the morning. I'm still up. Everyone's sleeping, and I'm just like. I'm just like blank. Like I don't even know what to think at this point. This game is messing with me so hard. I can't even play anymore tonight. So, yeah, man, great game. That's it, man. We did it. I knew this was gonna go way longer than we thought because people would be so into their games. I knew it. This is like almost a whole episode on its own.
Yeah, I may just separate it as its own episode.
Yeah.
Just it feels good actually really going in depth talking about a game you love. Like you never really get to do it that much.
Yeah, it's a good reminder of, why you love these games so much. You kind of remember them fondly.
We should do shows or movies next. That would be hype.
You imagine doing like top 5 games of period.
Oh my
I
god,
couldn't
that
do
would
it.
be
I would
I'm
kill
in.
myself.
that would be tough. That would be super tough.
We
We
would all
could-
be like, this game made my list, but
I would have to have
real
like
list.
20
Let me
minimum.
talk about this for 30 more
Well,
minutes.
to switch it up a little bit, maybe we could do top 5 shows, maybe to switch it out to something outside of video games. That could be a good one too.
I got a
Movies.
lot
I
of
hate-
good shows.
The problem is
Oh, yeah.
I love The Office like a ton,
Oh my
but
god,
it gets
me
so
too.
much hate nowadays.
I don't
and
care
it's
what
so
anybody
like annoying.
thinks. If anybody's looking at this, look real quick because this is hype and I'm going to show it off. I got this from one of my customers at work.
Yeah, I had to blow it up. That's awesome.
But it's like,
Oh, okay.
All the times they say that's what she said. Get it up. That's dude. That's awesome.
work got me that, and it's hype.
I think my favorite episode, and it's really weird. It's in season 1, but it's the guy comes, Mr. Brown.
Mr. Brown. Why am I not remembering this?
It's like the sexual harassment. That's what
Oh, they do the workshop.
he does the hero.
Oh,
And
yeah.
he,
It's so
Yeah.
cringe.
I remember now.
The
Wait,
most
Tim,
cringeous episodes are the best episodes every time.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's so hard to watch. I'm like hiding my eyes.
Yep,
as I'm
yep.
watching.
did you
So
tell
entertaining.
you tell Jake you've been watching Curb Your Enthusiasm? Because that's another one that really.
Okay,
Whoa.
no, for real. Rudy got me into it. Curb Your
Oh my
Enthusiasm.
god, dude.
I've never seen it before. I promise you. Watch the first episode, dude. It's right up our alley. It's like
it'll hook
watching
you in.
Napoleon Dynamite if he was like an older guy.
What's it called?
Curb Your Enthusiasm. It's the guy who created
What's
Seinfeld.
it on? What platform?
It's on HBO.
Nice. I got
HBO
HBO Max.
Max.
Thank
Oh
God.
man, check out one episode, dude. You'll be.
What's
you'll
it
be
called
hooked into
again?
it.
One more time.
Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Curb Your Enthusiasm. I'm about to go
Basically,
into
the most
watch it
cringe
right
things
now.
just keep happening to him, and like it's so things like beyond
Oh,
his control, and
man.
it's hard to watch. But
I'm
you'll
going
die
to watch
laughing.
it right now. Literally.
Oh, yeah, check it out,
I'm getting
man.
off and I'm going to watch it.
She will love it. Like
I'm going.
Dude,
I'm
dude,
going.
if you want, Tim, make a Facebook chat with Jake because I wanted to hear what he thinks later.
okay, because oh my god, it couldn't be better. Oh, I'm in season 3, episode 8, and I started like 4 days ago.
Yeah, you've been flying, dude. And I'll let you guys know what I think when I start season 3 of Castlevania as well. So,
Nice. I'm going to go watch this right now.
all right, guys, that was fun. Good talk, man. All right,
Later.
See ya.
all right, later, guys. Oh wait, let me kick Craig out. Gotta get that in there. Wait, how do I get that to the chat?
Bye, Greg.
Protect the chat.
Will you bring me the food bowl, please?